are coming in, so let us start our evening session. Dear delegates, we have made progress in this committee. We have a lot of agenda items open with many member states wishing to take the floor. We need to speed up our work to ensure that we conclude all the business assigned to us. So this evening, let me share my goals, if I may, that they are following. To finalize our debates and consideration of Agenda Item 13, Sustainable Financing Report of the Working Group, which has one decision. Then, to finalize our debates on Agenda Item 16, Public Health Emergencies, Preparedness and Response, Sub-Item 16.2, to note the report contained in A75/17 and the draft decision therein. I understand that there are ongoing discussion among member states with regards to the draft resolution contained in the conference paper number 7. And I propose we consider that the draft resolution as well as additional draft resolutions under this sub-agenda item at a later stage. This is my goal for this evening. Therefore, we start slightly delayed by good reason. I have asked for the option to continue our work beyond 9 p.m. this evening. The Secretariat has ensured that we have interpretation until 10:30 tonight, not tomorrow night, tonight, 10:30, should we need it. It is your good hand to decide what time we finish this evening. So I count on your goodwill and discipline with keeping your interventions focused on the matter at hand. In order to facilitate the discussions, myself and the two co-chairs and rapporteur will do our very best to help you to do this. By this, I would like to hand over to Vice Chair Mariam to take over the chair seats. Thank you.
And we start with Thank you, Chairman Nakatani. Good evening, delegates. I will start with the list. We shall now return to Agenda Item 13, Sustainable Financing Report of the Working Group, under Pillar 4. More effective and efficient WHO providing better support to countries. The relevant documents are A75/9 and A75/54. I should like to remind you that we are already closed the speakers list yesterday when we suspended the item. I will now read the list. Starting from Italy. Okay. United Kingdom. United Kingdom, Madagascar, Kenya, Belgium, Paraguay, Mauritius, Switzerland, Lebanon, Brazil, Indonesia, China, Fiji, Thailand, Zambia, Ecuador, Kuwait, Argentina, Canada, Dominican Republic, South Africa, Colombia, Seychelles, Gabon, Bahamas, and Jamaica. I first give the floor to the delegate of the United Kingdom, to be followed by the delegate of Madagascar. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Working Group Chair and Bureau and the Secretariat for steering us so ably through these important deliberations. Thanks also to all Member States of the Working Group for our informative discussions and for finding a consensus text, which underlines the importance we all place on WHO and supporting it for the future. We believe the recommendations reflect the breadth of ideas emerging during our meetings, as well as a balance between the urgency of solving the issue whilst taking account of current financial situation. The recommendations also recognise the need for continued reform of WHO. We support the proposed task team to consider both the reforms in WHO's control, which will be linked to further assessed contribution increases, as well as those broader reform proposals which are also in Member State hands to deliver. Establishment of this group will give space to contemplate issues and interesting proposals which have arisen during working group discussions and beyond. We also support the broader aspects within the recommendations, including the exploration of a replenishment, as well as continuing to improve the quality of voluntary contributions, as well as broaden their sources. The range of recommendations recognises that an ideal where WHO's base budget is fully, flexibly and sustainably funded is still elusively distant. However, the UK believes that a significant increase in assessed contributions is at the heart of any solution, and we must take the first step, knowing that it will take several biennia to reach our ultimate aim of 50% of the base being covered by ACs. We support the WHO adopting the recommendations of the working group through this decision, which also requests the DG to put the necessary measures in place for their implementation. This will include requesting EB151 next week to establish the Member State task team, which will underpin this process. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I now give the floor to Madagascar, followed by Kenya. Is the delegate for Madagascar present in the room? Okay. Then we can move on to Kenya. Is the delegate for Kenya present? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Kenya aligns her statement with that delivered by Ghana on behalf of the member states of the WHO Africa region. Kenya recognizes the paramount role played by WHO as the trusted partner of governments in their pursuit of promoting and protecting the health of their populations, and fully supports calls to strengthen WHO to realize its mandate. In this regard, Kenya acknowledges the urgent need to address WHO financing and fully supports calls to strengthen the independence, authority, and financing of WHO through a predictable, equitable, and sustainable framework, while reducing over-reliance on voluntary contributions. Kenya also concurs with observations that maintaining WHO's current financing model is not acceptable or sustainable in the achievement of the objectives of the 13th General Program of Work. In this regard, Kenya concurs with the various independent panels and committees that the entire base budget of WHO needs to be fully funded by unrestricted, flexible contributions, and celebrates the consensus by member states on the recommendations of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing on increasing assessed contributions to the WHO. We wish to thank the chair of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing as well as the entire Bureau for their leadership in guiding this process. We especially recognize the dedication of Ghana in their capacity as Vice Chair of the Working Group in their commitment in representing the priorities and interests of the WHO Africa region. Additionally, Kenya welcomes proposals that a replenishment model could be explored as a mechanism to increase sustainability of WHO funding through non-specified multi-year financing arrangements. Kenya also advocates that discussions in the Working Group on Sustainable Financing should be based on the principle of equity, while also addressing the historical challenges of uneven funding. This is in addition to paying specific attention to WHO-specific strategic priorities and outcomes at the three levels of WHO, particularly at the national level. In conclusion, Chair, Kenya recommends the adoption of the recommendations of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing. In implementing the recommendations, the WHO should ensure adequate mechanisms are put in place to enhance governance, transparency, efficiency, accountability, and compliance. WHO should also put in place progress monitoring mechanisms and report to member states on the achievement of equitable funding across the budget centers of the organization. I thank you.
Thank you, Kenya, for your contribution. I now pass the floor to Belgium, followed by Paraguay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We align with the statement made yesterday by France on behalf of the EU and its member states. Belgium has on several occasions expressed its strong support for a significant increase in sustainable and flexible funding for WHO. In our view, improving the balance between flexible and inflexible funding remains a crucial element to strengthen WHO, to make the organization more independent, and to increase WHO's capacities to deliver on its mandate. At the Programme, Budget and Administration Committee last week, when the budget 2022-2023 was presented, we clearly saw that despite an increase in the total budget and in the thematic funding for this biennium, pockets of poverty persist within the organization. We concur with the Secretariat that this can only be solved through more flexible financing. It is clear to us that the demands Member States have placed and are placing on the organization are not aligned with the amount and the kind of financing we provide WHO with. The Working Group on Sustainable Financing has been working really hard for more than a year on a way forward to increase the sustainable funding for WHO, and we are glad that a consensus was found, with our sincere thanks to the Chair and the Bureau for working effortlessly to achieve this. We therefore very much welcome this decision, and we would like to call on all Member States and donors to take the recommendations of the Working Group to heart and make sure that WHO is increasingly sustainably financed in the coming years. In our view, and as a first step, we should aim at reaching the 50% target by the biennium 2028-2029, and Belgium is committed to do its part to help achieve this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Belgium. I would like to now give the floor to the delegate from Paraguay, followed by Mauritius.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Chair. Paraguay would like to welcome the report that has been presented and the work that was done by the Group on Sustainable Financing. Paraguay takes note of the results obtained and contained in this document, and we would like to say that we agree with the consensus that was achieved, which would have not been possible without the active participation of all member states, who showed their commitment to this organization in the last year in every meeting of this working group. My country and other delegations have expressed concern regarding the proposed significant increase of assessed contributions. We have said in different multilateral spaces and on several occasions that there are different difficulties, socio-economic difficulties faced by our countries, the low and middle income countries, as a result of the pandemic. Nonetheless, and in line with what we said at the beginning of the negotiations, Paraguay has decided that it will redouble its efforts to commit itself to change the status quo within the WHO so that we can find a financing model that is more flexible and one that is supported by the concrete reforms to strengthen the efficiency, transparency within the organization in line with the efforts that are being made by countries themselves. Thus, we believe that we have made considerable efforts so that we can reach the objectives that have been put forward, because the responsible and progressive work that is being put forward by the member states is the key for us to ensure that we can find an effective manner of finding the right timelines that we can stick to in the next meetings. Finally, we would like to say that we would like to ensure that there is an increase of independence for the organization, and this means that we need to make an important effort by all member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paraguay. I will now give the floor to Mauritius, followed by Switzerland.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, health and the economy are intrinsically linked. Health is both a beneficiary and a prerequisite for a sustainable economy and a resilient future. COVID-19 and other public health emergencies are a reminder that now more than ever, we need a stronger WHO that is able to deliver on its ever-growing mandate as the world's leading authority on global health. The WHO has been at the forefront of the COVID pandemic response while concurrently being engaged in some of its most consequential reforms. For the WHO reform agenda to be successful, it is critical that the organization has access to predictable and sustainable financing. Currently, there is a huge misalignment between what we expect from WHO and what it can realistically deliver with the resources at hand. It is clear that the status quo is not a solution. We must commit to more sustainable financing of WHO, and we must do it now. Reaching consensus on the funding option that reconciles with WHO's mandate and assures financial support from member states is vital. Continuing dependence of the organization on voluntary contributions, mostly earmarked, is hampering the organization's ability to deliver high-quality normative and technical support to the member states. The proposal for flexible and predictable financing is a game changer that will allow the WHO to innovate and scale up interventions in times of emergencies, as well, and achieve higher returns on investment. It will also ensure that the organization has access to flexible and predictable finances so that it can fulfill its mandate on normative, policy, and technical guidance. It is with this understanding and perspective that the Republic of Mauritius supports the adoption of the recommendations of the Technical Working Group report, as well as the stance of the African Group for an increase in the assessed contributions of all member states, representing 50% of the base budget over a period of the 3 biennia ending 2029. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mauritius. I now give the floor to Switzerland, followed by Lebanon.
Chers délégués,
Dear delegates, Switzerland would like to take this opportunity of thanking the working group and its officers for their commitment, their energy and their tireless efforts. We also thank them for the intense work done. The main lesson that we have drawn from the experience we have lived through is that we need a strong WHO to be at the heart of pandemic preparedness and response. Such a WHO needs appropriate resources, capacity and authority. It's a challenge for us now to ensure that we have an adequate level of investment that can be sustained within this, the only organisation that represents all of us and that allows us to unite our forces in order to protect public health today and in the future when we know that new challenges lie ahead. Switzerland fully supports the report and the recommendations from the Working Group on Sustainable Financing. Switzerland is in favour of a substantial increase in assessed contributions. We wish to emphasise that an increase in contributions must be accompanied by an increased need for transparency, accountability, traceability and efficiency in the use of resources. We need to seize the day to refocus the way in which we fund WHO. If we don't do it now, in the middle of a pandemic that has hit us all and that has been of concern to us for more than 2 years, if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? We must take this opportunity because we all know the window of opportunity closes very quickly and other global concerns are already coming to the top of the global agenda and taking over from COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. I now give the floor to Lebanon, followed by Brazil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lebanon aligns itself with the statement delivered by Morocco yesterday on behalf of the EMR and would like to thank the Director General and express deep appreciation for the work of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing as clarified in document A75/9. We support the recommendations in Appendix 2 and we look forward for the measures that the DG will put to follow up on these recommendations. In that regard, we would like to reiterate our opinion in a nutshell. While we agree that to ensure sustainability for the base segment, there should be more reliance on assessed contributions, we would like to note that some countries, including ours, are not prepared for this increase soon due to the dire economic circumstances they are passing through. We suggest for those countries that interim measures should be found, such as alternative international financing until things settle down for specific programs. We fully support WHO to be a resilient and strong institution facing emergencies, and we do believe that any emergency should find a ready budget and that no budget constraints, whether in amount or in earmarking, should exist to face emergencies, preserving thus its role as the leader in global health. On the priorities, we agree that priorities do change, and so should be the financing. For that, we recommend a more focused exercise to be initiated, which is to be region-specific and even country-specific, that would lead to an update in priorities. We believe that a good start would be to revise all resolutions and decisions in a thematic manner and in line with GPW13 and SDG targets, keeping the impact in mind. We therefore support the decision to increase the assessed contributions and acknowledge the incremental process proposed, which will help countries plan their budget to meet the progressive increase. While we push for a transparent and focused exploration of the replenishment mechanisms to cover the remaining needed funds, we would like to highlight the importance of ensuring that this should be in line with preserving the strength and the solidarity of the WHO governance structure at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Lebanon. I now pass the floor to Brazil, followed by Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil thanks fellow member states and the Bureau of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing, as well as the Secretariat, for the tireless efforts to achieve consensus on this fundamental topic for WHO. Yes. Yes, Chair. The recommendations of the Working Group represent a balanced, holistic, and ambitious roadmap for addressing the sustainable financing of this organization, including the challenges of imbalance between areas of work, inequalities on distribution of resources between countries and regions, and disproportion between assessed and voluntary contributions. This requires predictable, equitable, sustainable financing of WHO, aligned with national, regional, and global priorities. It is also necessary that discussions on sustainable financing properly recognize the efforts of national governments, especially in developing countries, many of which are facing challenging fiscal constraints, to ensure adequate domestic resources to respond to COVID-19 and to the long-term socio-economic impacts of the pandemic. Brazil emphasizes, however, that any proposal for an increase in assessed contributions, be it in the 76 WAJ as well as on future biennia, would be strictly conditioned to the satisfactory elaboration and implementation of a reform plan, under evaluation to be carried out by member states, as well as on the future fiscal context of countries. This plan should envisage ambitious reforms in WHO's budgetary, programmatic, financial, and governance process in order to significantly improve transparency and accountability. As always, Brazil is committed to continue our discussions on sustainable financing, guided by the consensus recommendations of the report of the working group, with a view to improving WHO financing through innovative and creative solutions that include better management of current expenditure and providing the organization with the needed flexibility to use voluntary contributions to fulfill its programmatic mandates endorsed by WHA. Brazil urges for the fulfillment of Target 17.2 of Agenda 2030 through the implementation of ODA commitments, including those related to the target of provision of 0.7% of gross national income for official development assistance, with a preference for directing resources for global health through flexible contributions. Finally, we look forward to the discussions regarding the Task Force on Governance that, in our perspective, should focus its work on reforms in the following areas: budgeting, oversight of initiatives by the Secretariat and Member States, programmatic management, transparency, and efficiency measures. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brazil. I now give the floor to the delegate of Indonesia, followed by China.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the Chair and the Bureau of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing for their report. In line with the report, we acknowledge that the current budgeting process and funding model of the WHO is unsustainable, hampering WHO efforts to fully carry out its mandate. A sustainable funded WHO indeed will improve WHO independence and the continuation of its work in the health sector. While we recognize the multiple efforts that have been conducted to solve these chronic issues throughout the years, we believe continued efforts to strengthen governance, transparency, accountability, efficiency, and compliance should be pursued. We support the need for the base segment of the program budget of WHO to be fully flexibly funded. In this regard, WHO, its partners, and the member states need to collectively find a win-win solution. WHO needs to ensure that programs conducted are aligned with member states' needs and priorities. We are supportive of the dual approach to increase the assessed contribution, mindful of the request for better governance and budgetary reform process, and the work to increase flexible and unearmarked funding mechanism, including by continuing the possibility to have a replenishment mechanism. We would like to reiterate the need to improve WHO's sustainable financing in parallel with the progress made on governance reforms, and to strengthen its transparency, efficiency, compliance, and accountability. In this regard, we support the recommendation to establish an MS-led task force on strengthening WHO budgetary, programmatic, and financing governance. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Indonesia. I now give the floor to the delegate from China, followed by Fiji.
谢谢主席。中国感谢秘书处以及可持续工作。
Thank you, China. We'd like to thank the WHO Secretariat and the working group that has worked on sustainable financing. We think they've done an excellent job of work. China also supports WHO, and we believe that it does need sustainable and predictable funding. China believes that each and every country should shoulder its financial responsibilities, taking, of course, a differentiated approach depending on countries' ability to pay, so that there is no excessive burden placed on any one country. We therefore support flexibility within the voluntary contributions as a way of giving the Secretariat more autonomy in the way that they can obtain funding. We believe that there's also a need to enhance transparency, coherence and viability in the way in which the budget is established and the way in which priorities are set. We think a number of measures need to be taken, and we also need to take due account of the WHO's competences and indeed its vocation. We need to limit expenditure. Otherwise, we will not have the money we need in order to deal with future challenges. In terms of the working group, we'd like to emphasize a couple of points. First of all, when it comes to the reform plan that has been submitted, alongside the first recommendation, that is to say the increase in assessed contributions, China believes that the Secretariat needs to demonstrate clearly what results are expected from this, and that needs to happen when the 2024-25 budget is elaborated. Secondly, on the question of the working group, here indeed we do support enhanced participation from member states in elaborating the budget and also in working out the programs to be undertaken by this organization. We think that we need some kind of mechanism for the long term to allow us to work in that way, in a way that is transparent and accountable for all that is done within this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, China. I now give the floor to Fiji, followed by Thailand. Is the delegate from Fiji present in the room? We will now move on to the delegate from Thailand. You may take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thailand appreciates the good work of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing, and we support the draft decision. We request that the WHO must ensure that increased access contribution from member states will be distributed and utilized transparently and effectively, in line with the 5 priorities under the extended GPW. It is also crucial that the WHO limits program budget size to minimize racial gap between the access contribution and earmark voluntary contribution. Otherwise, increased access contribution will not offer the WHO independency and flexibility as we expected. Thailand also requests the Secretariat to continually explore other feasible replenishment mechanisms to sustain the financing of the WHO. Lastly, Thailand is looking forward to the establishment of the Agile Member State Task Group on strengthening the WHO budgetary, programmatic, and financing governance. However, the mandate of this working group needs to be different from the existing Program Budget and Administration Committee. Chair, we are ready to contribute and provide inputs to the Agile Task Group to ensure that the world achieves the SDG target by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Thailand. I now give the floor to the delegate of Zambia, followed by Ecuador.
Thank you, Chairperson. Zambia aligns this statement with the one made by Ghana on behalf of the Africa region. We want to start by commending the working group for their work on the proposal on sustainable financing for the World Health Organization. As a country, we wish to reaffirm our support for a stronger and independent World Health Organization now more than ever before. The COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other emerging and re-emerging public health threats, have taught us how our progress in public health and the socioeconomic aspects of our countries, individually and collectively, can be overturned by public health threats. Having increased assessed contributions would lead to more ownership of the program budget and ensure adequate funding is given to areas of priority and planned activities. Further, increased assessed contributions would facilitate the transformation within the organization that is essential to build a more robust and resilient WHO with the resultant benefits to member states. Zambia therefore supports the recommendations by the working group and calls upon all member states to support the adoption. We urge the Secretariat to continue working towards meeting the aspirations of member states as we move together towards a healthy world. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Zambia. I now give the floor to Ecuador, followed by Kuwait. Is the representative delegate of Ecuador present? Kuwait, you may take the floor, please. Is the delegate from Ecuador present?
Yes. Hello. Yes, President, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the message. I think I gotta excuse ourselves at this point. Sorry.
Is the delegate from Kuwait present? No. We will now move on to the delegate from Argentina, followed by Canada, and then South Africa. Argentina, you may take the floor.
Gracias, señora Modera.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to welcome the efforts that were made by the Chair of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing and the report that was presented. We have said that we share concerns on the problems faced by the WHO regarding sustainable financing. We need to ensure that we have the independence of the organization maintained, as well as ensuring that we can keep our daily activities working. We see that there is an imbalance between voluntary contributions and assessed contributions, as well as the need to ensure that we have sustainable funding that is predictable, fair, and flexible. As we have said previously in informal meetings, we would like the country's situation of the Americas to be taken into consideration when we look at assessed contributions. We also would like to ensure that any initiative to strengthen the architecture of the WHO is discussed within the organization and not on the margins of the organization, so that we can ensure that there is an equitable participation of all its member states. Finally, we would like to reiterate our support of the WHO in being able to rise to challenges that we see in health emergencies. We would like to continue to speak about the different options on the table for sustainable financing without ignoring the different difficulties that are faced by the countries in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. I now give the floor to the delegate from Canada, followed by South Africa.
As we enter the third year of this pandemic, it is now more clear than ever the world needs a strong WHO. Like all multilateral institutions, a strong WHO must be sustainably financed, transparent, and accountable. Canada joins other member states in expressing our sincere thanks and congratulations to the Sustainable Financing Working Group Chair, the Bureau, fellow member states, the Secretariat for all the hard work, ambition, tenacity, and commitment to finding solutions and consensus to strengthen WHO financing. The recommendations being put forward will have a transformative impact on how this organization operates. Our work is not yet done. It is crucial that when we meet here next May, the recommendations on sustainable financing that we are adopting this year are matched with equally ambitious recommendations to strengthen WHO efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. This is in part about having timely information for member states to be able to provide strategic directions to enable the organization to better achieve its goals. As one of the working group recommendations states, member states as a collective must match their willingness to fund the organization with the demands that we place on it. Therefore, we need to understand the impacts of the demands that we are placing on the organization better. Having timely and accurate information on the costing of proposed resolutions and decisions before they are adopted, or even before they are tabled, is an important step in that respect. We, member states, the Secretariat, all need to think about this more carefully from a process perspective. Canada strongly supports the working group recommendation to establish an agile task team open to all member states on strengthening WHO budgetary, programmatic, and financing and governance. Substantive work by the task team over the coming months will be required. Canada stands ready to work with others to make sure this task team delivers for all parts of the organization, member states, and the WHO Secretariat and staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada. I now give the floor to South Africa, followed by Colombia.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa aligns itself with a statement delivered by a distinguished delegate of Ghana on behalf of the 47 member states of the Africa region. South Africa wishes to thank the chair of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing, as well as the co-chairs for their outstanding leadership in steering the work of the Working Group diligently towards fulfilling its mandate established under Decision EB 148 in brackets 12. We also appreciate the commitment of all WHO member states, their flexibility, which resulted in the decision which will have a lasting impact on the implementation of the WHO programs at all levels of the organization. South Africa welcomes the recommendation of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing presented to this meeting, which is mainly on sustainable financing of the WHO, which is a member state organization, through increasing assessed contributions to support at least 50% of the base budget of WHO base budget over the next few bienniums to 2028-2029. South Africa supports the recommendations of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing. Investing in the WHO produces an overall economic return of $35 for every $1 invested. The return on investment is higher for African member states. South Africa also supports the establishment of a task group on strengthening WHO budgetary, programmatic, and financing government, and see it as a commitment to improve the functioning of this organization. South Africa supports and urges the Secretariat to explore an appropriate replenish model as another resource mobilization strategy. This increase will provide a unique opportunity for the WHO to affirm its leading role in the global health architecture. I thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. I now give the floor to the delegate from Colombia, followed by Seychelles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colombia acknowledges the work and efforts made by the Bureau and the Member States within the Working Group on sustainable financing so that we could push forward a debate on improving the sustainability of finance in the organization, and so that the organization could rise to the expectations of the state. So we are aware of the relevance and importance of the WHO and its role in strengthening health systems and in responding to innumerable matters of public health which affect all our countries and regions. Therefore, the work that was done by the working group shows that we have too much dependence on voluntary contributions, which impacts the management of the organization and implementing the mandates within our governance structures. We take note of the recommendation of the working group to increase assessed contributions. And this can be discussed by member states, and which, aspirationally would allow us to reach a 50% increase in the base segment between 2022-2023 for the biennium 2030 to 2031. These discussions, as is recommended by the working group, must go hand in hand with the appropriate reforms of governance, strengthening transparency, efficiency, accountability, and ensuring that we can reach the goals of the organisation. And we agree with other member states that this should be the main focus. We must mention as well that we are currently facing problems that have been exacerbated by the pandemic. We are facing complex financial and fiscal situations which are making it difficult for us to strengthen our healthcare systems. In addition to this, our assessed contributions in the WHO must be added to the contributions that we must make to PAHO. Finally, we would like to reiterate our commitment to the debates and progress that will be made by the task force, which will be established in this assembly so that we can strengthen the governance and programs and financing of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. I now give the floor to the delegate of Seychelles, followed by Gabon.
Seychelles believes that sustainable financing of WHO must be accompanied by a greater quest for efficiency and effectiveness in everything the organization does. WHO can certainly do more with less by always seeking to be innovative in its approaches to do its business. COVID-19 has shown us that this is possible. WHO must also explore how greater use of renewable energy and even less printing can help the organization channel valuable financial resources to where they are needed most. WHO should also explore how to achieve the same or better results by making more rational use of the human resources at its disposal. In this regard, Madam Chair, increase in Member States' contribution will not go as far as we hope for if the increase is not accompanied by greater efficiency and effectiveness of programs, projects, and administration. In general, more judicious use of all resources. Seychelles supports all efforts underway in WHO to make the actions of the organization more sustainable so that WHO can continue to add value to what member states are doing on their own. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Seychelles. I now give the floor to the delegate from Gabon, followed by Bahamas.
Merci, Madam. Thank you, Madam President. Gabon wholeheartedly supports the statement made by Ghana on behalf of the 47 members of AFRO. Gabon also wishes to congratulate the chair of the working group for this report on sustainable financing. As part of the group, Gabon noted that some WHO programs did not have the resources they needed to deal with health emergencies and crises. For that reason, we welcome the consensus that was hammered out on increasing the level of assessed contributions so that by 2030-2031 we could see a 50% increase in the core budget. We think that's very important in empowering WHO. We call also for greater transparency, efficiency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabon. I now give the floor to Bahamas, followed by Jamaica.
Madam Chair, the consensus-based manner in which the Working Group on Sustainable Financing deliberated is commendable. Madam Chair, since 2015, my country has been devastated by 4 large hurricanes, 3 of which have been classified as Category 5 events: Joaquin in 2015, Matthew in 2016, Irma in 2017, and Dorian in 2019. The Inter-American Developing Bank estimates the cumulative damages and loss at $3.4 billion US. Just prior to traveling to this assembly, we experienced record-breaking rainfalls, signaling that the impact of climate change is not yet done with us. In March 2020, my country reported its first case of COVID-19, and from then to now has been reeling from the fallouts of this unrelenting enemy. These vulnerabilities significantly diminish our capacity to finance our recovery and resilience building. Madam Chair, the Bahamas is identified as one of the member states for which its phased 50% increase to base would apply, representing a 153% increase over the 5-year period. Madam Chair, notwithstanding our persisting vulnerabilities, as a small island, developing, and large ocean state, the Bahamas appreciates the principle undergirding such an increase. We, like others, have reaped the rewards of membership with WHO. Madam Chair, the Bahamas supports the resolution and appeals to the Secretariat to carve out an intensified and accelerated program of work for small island developing and large ocean states. We also urge WHO to leverage its global leadership to advocate for greater resources to be directed to these member states for emergency preparedness and mitigation. No one can be left behind. Madam Chair, this conversation on sustainable financing is more than just about money. It is also about greater freedom to fund our priorities. We request the Secretariat to develop a clear result-based budget to heighten the level of accountability and to streamline operations and efficiencies while not compromising the organization's relevance and impact. Finally, we urge the Director General to pursue fully flexible resources for quicker, more nimble, and targeted action. Madam Chair, I thank you.
Thank you, Bahamas. Just a reminder to all delegates that we are trying to complete this session in a short space of time as possible. So let's try to keep our contributions to 3 minutes as agreed. I will now hand over the floor to Jamaica, followed by the Maldives, and then Fiji. Is the delegate of Jamaica present? Jamaica, I now hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jamaica thanks the Director General for transmitting the comprehensive report of the 7th meeting of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing held in April 2022. The report is a result of inclusive and robust discussions within the WGSF. During those discussions, it became even more evident that there needed to be better alignment between the expectations of member states and the sustainable financing of the organization. We'd like to extend gratitude to Mr. John Comm of Germany and other members of the Bureau for their tireless work and engagement throughout the session of the WGSF. Many thanks also to the WHO for supporting the Bureau's efforts by preparing the working documents, including the rationale for an increase in assessed contributions. Chair, the World Health Organization plays an essential role in health governance, including the delivery of much-needed global health policy and technical advice, and in accordance with its core global functions under the WHO Constitution. We therefore concur that a sustainable resource WHO is required for the organization to be fit for purpose, efficiently and effectively fulfilling its mandate as a lead directing and coordinating authority in the area of international health. Jamaica further agrees that the main source of funding for the organization should be the assessed contributions of member states, which will improve prioritization on thematic areas, reduce the influence of voluntary contributions on the organization, thus improving the independence of its work. In that connection, we welcome the work through the governance reforms towards further strengthening transparency, efficiency, accountability, among other areas. We further wish to propose that the WHO incorporates the valuable experience of PAHO with bottom-up planning, in particular the PAHO hand-on method of programmatic prioritization, examines further the WHO budgeting process as well as the percentage of administrative cost as compared to the cost of the services delivered. Greater cost savings and efficiency measures should be pursued in this regard. Focuses on its core functions and priorities, which should be on the delivery of technical cooperation. Chair, Jamaica fully supports the thrust to strengthen the viability of the World Health Organization and its ability to provide greater support to the health agenda at the international, regional, and national levels. In concluding, Jamaica endorses the draft decision to adopt the recommendations as tabled in the report Appendix 2 and requests the Director General to ensure the implementation of these recommendations by establishing the appropriate mechanisms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jamaica. I now give the floor to the delegate from the Maldives, followed by Fiji.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maldives appreciates and values the extensive work of the Chair and the Working Group on reaching a consensus on the difficult issue of sustainable financing. Maldives acknowledges and supports the practical recommendations brought forward for Member States to consider. In this regard, I would like to inform that the Government of Maldives have agreed to support the proposal to increase its contribution. Budget accompanied by appropriate governance reforms. Maldives further welcomes the proposal for an incremental process to increase AC budget, which is practical, acceptable, and implementable by all Member States. Maldives urges to further strengthen transparency, efficiency, accountability, compliance, and risk management functions within WHO. These actions are required to ensure the increased funding is met with increased efficiency and the investments reap the outcome intended. Chair, Maldives welcomes the progress made to ensure the organization has sustainable means of financing and urge WHO to identify all feasible replenishment mechanisms to fund WHO. Maldives offers support to implement the recommendations of the working group. We would also like to reiterate that it's right time to move forward with aligning commitment by Member States with the demands we place on WHO. Thank you.
Thank you, Maldives. I now give the floor to Fiji. And if there are the delegates of the following countries are present, you will follow. That is Madagascar, Ecuador, and Kuwait. Fiji, you may take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fiji wishes to, first of all, commend the able leadership of Chair Mr. Bjorn, members of the Bureau, including the Secretariat, for the dedication and hard work, in particular, the manner in which this report has been compiled, having undergone vigorous phases of consultations and reviews. It will be remiss not to mention the flexibility of the Member States in the challenging process. During such a difficult financial situation across all economies, having to round up a report which aims to address the financial well-being of an organization which has not been challenged or reviewed in a couple of decades is an enormous and complex responsibility. Fiji agrees with the DG's remarks that much has been expected of the WHO, yet member states were not ready to show financial commitments, via a sustainable financing model. Fiji is fully cognizant of this in view of member states' unique financial circumstances. The WHO governance mechanism concerns, including the transparency requirements that is needed on the part of WHO. In view of the current financial environment and the issues above, a phased approach in this regard is agreeable, stipulating an incremental increase that takes into account the financial situation of member states as we recover from the current pandemic situation. The targeted increase in funding is key to address the imbalance between assessed contributions, voluntary and earmark contributions of the WHO. In this regard, Fiji welcomes the report and its phased increase in voluntary contributions and look forward to the return of investments that should culminate as the result of enhancing WHO visibility at all levels, including in the WHO Western Pacific region and country offices, as in the small island developing states in the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiji. Is the delegate of Madagascar present? Yes? Madagascar, you may take the floor, followed by Ecuador and Kuwait. Thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam President. Madagascar is honoured to take the floor to address the issue of sustainable financing for WHO. We support the statement made by Ghana on behalf of AFRO. We thank the Secretariat for the document on this item and also for the presentation of the item. We are aware that the current financing system for WHO has to be improved if it is to become viable, predictable and long-term. We very much hope that that can happen because we believe the WHO should continue to play a leading role for global health. We are very much aware of the impact of what WHO does at regional and country level. Therefore, ensuring increased financing for WHO seems to us to be crucial. Increasing assessed contributions as is proposed, that is to say, in such a way as to allow us to have a 50% increase in the core budget by 2030 would seem to us to be the correct way to proceed and could have a significant positive impact, and we believe could actually result in a fallout of around $35 for each dollar invested if you look at the overall economic impacts of what might be done. When thinking about what is proposed, then we believe that a gradual increase in contributions should be undertaken in accordance with a gradual increase in the participation of different member states in the activities. And we do know that we need to do that in order to meet the expectations we have of WHO. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiji. I will now give the floor to the delegate from Ecuador, followed by Kuwait.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for earlier. Ecuador would like to welcome the efforts made by the World Health Organization when it meets its expectations. When it has limited funding, it is difficult for us to ensure sustainable financing. We welcome the severe economic difficulties faced by some member states, marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, and which might make it difficult for us to make all our assessed contributions commitments. Ecuador would like to call on countries to increase their voluntary contributions in a sustainable and foreseeable way. We also believe that we need to recognize the WHO's efforts to try and find alternatives to funding its programs, so that we can also develop normative policies so that we can achieve the improvement of health at a global level. We support the recommendation of the working group and the proposed decision on sustainable financing.
Creo que fue muy...
Perhaps I was not that entertaining. We can adopt the recommendations of the Working Group of Sustainable Financing in the documents contained in the report, and we would like the Director General to ensure that measures are adopted so that we can implement the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ecuador. I now give the floor to the Delegate of Kuwait. Okay. Thank you. I do not have any further speakers on my list. We have several non-state actors in official relations with the WHO and who have requested the floor on this agenda item. According to privileges conferred by relationship with the World Health Organization, I have the pleasure in giving the floor to the representative of the Task Force for Global Health Incorporated.
The Task Force for Global Health works with WHO in 13 technical areas, including the COVID response, field epidemiology training, polio, hepatitis, influenza, NTDs, and others. We strongly support the report of the Committee on Sustainable Financing. We congratulate the member states that worked tirelessly and with enthusiasm and patience to bring about this agreement. We know we will only succeed at overcoming COVID and the health emergencies to come if we work together. To do so, WHO must be able to implement the plans led and agreed to by member states with sufficient and transparent resources to ensure success. The financing agreement being considered today is a groundbreaking step forward. We join fellow advocates in pledging to educate our elected leaders and the public on its necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to the representative of Medicus Mundi International Network Health for All.
Good evening. We welcome the Working Group on Sustainable Financing's call to increase assessed contributions, but its recommendations are not sufficiently ambitious. Scaling up assessed contributions to 50% of the base budget by 2030 falls short of the modest 67% the independent panel recommended earlier this month. Nevertheless, we urge member states to adopt the decision and to begin moving forward toward a core budget financed entirely by assessed contributions. We are disappointed with the recommendations WHO should seek further private funding in accordance with FENSA. FENSA insufficiently insulates WHO from industry influence, as even seemingly untied funds are under the constant threat of removal should a private donor take issue with a WHO policy or decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure in giving the floor to the representative of Global Health Council Incorporated.
Thank you, Chair. Global Health Council commends the efforts of member states and the Working Group on Sustainable Financing to reach agreement on recommendations to financially empower WHO. A stronger WHO is in the interest of all governments and their citizens. WHO has repeatedly shown, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, it is an essential resource for protecting the health of all people. To meet the expectations the world has for WHO, we must provide the budget and resources that match its mandate. The consensus reached by the Working Group is a tremendous first step to address WHO's financial sustainability. Global Health Council is proud to join a letter of 80 partners calling on member states to endorse the Working Group's recommendations and increase the level of assessed contributions to 50% of the WHO base budget by the 2030-2031 biennium or sooner. This is an historic opportunity to secure and sustainably finance WHO and provide the support necessary for WHO to deliver on the triple billion targets and the promise of health for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to give the floor to the Chair of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing, Mr. Bjorn Kamil. Mr. Kamil, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So first of all, it's hard for me to summarize the entire discussion here. I'd like to express obviously my sincere thanks for the overwhelming support that we heard for the work of the working group and, well, for the consensus that we've reached in the working group. I've heard some arguing even for a more ambitious outcome, and if anybody is to be blamed for not being even more ambitious, then I guess it's the chair of this working group. Since the group is certainly wiser than me, and I sincerely doubt that I'm able to summarize everything, and I will not go through the list, the wide list of member states who've been supporting. I will cite the group, the points that I've picked up, and I hope I'm not missing too much, and I'm trying to focus on the overall picture here. So member states have raised that this is more than about money. This is, or this will have, lasting transformative impact. This will tremendously increase member states' ownership of WHO. This will strengthen the authority of WHO, the only health organization that encompasses all of us, member states. This is nothing less than a paradigm shift for a functioning WHO. This will have a huge return on investment. It's a groundbreaking step forward and a game changer for an inclusive global health governance. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal. Dr. Hedger, I shall now give the floor to the Secretariat. Ms. Ellison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the chance to say a few words on this auspicious occasion. On behalf of the Secretariat team in WHO's HQ and its regional and country offices, may I say what a pleasure it was to work so closely with the Chair of the Working Group and his Bureau and witness their commitment and that of our Member States to getting a positive outcome from this process. We thank all of the Member States who asked many great questions and worked so hard, and we believe that the enhanced mutual understanding that emerges from this 18-month process will serve WHO well for the further work that lies ahead. But for today, we warmly welcome this outcome and thank all our Member States.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Dr. Hedger, Director, Program Management for the Eastern Mediterranean. You have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, Director General, I would like to commend the Member States, Bureau members and Secretariat for their collective efforts to reach a full consensus after 7 sessions of the Working Group on Sustainable Financing. As we highlighted in the remarks to the 150th session of the Executive Board, enhanced and sustainable financing is essential for WHO in the Eastern Mediterranean region in particular, and globally to address key public health priorities in all countries and meet member states' expectations. In our region of 745 million people, where many countries face urgent humanitarian needs alongside huge health challenges, a high degree of funding predictability, flexibility, and sustainability will enable us to take a strategic approach to existing and emerging needs. We are now at a defining moment that will shape the direction and impact of WHO's work as a trusted authority in public health. A decision needs to be made to ensure that WHO is strong and effective. We recognize the current financial challenges faced by member states all over, and especially in our region, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, as Dr. Tedros said in the second iteration of the investment case, the cost of investing in a strong WHO and other domestic and global health institutions pales in comparison with the collective global cost of the pandemic, estimated at over $22 trillion. I appeal to our member states to voice their support for the recommendations of the working group, especially the recommendations to increase financing up to 50% of the base segment of program budget through assessed contributions, to implement fully flexible funding of the base segment of the program budget, to increase the flexibility of emergency funds, and to address equity concerns regarding chronically underfunded programs. This is crucial to allow us to achieve what we all want, addressing the crises that face us and building back fairer and better. This is a call for solidarity and action to achieve health for all by all, WHO EMRO's strategic vision and beyond. Your voice and your support are truly vital. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hadja. I now give the floor to the Director General. Dr. Tedros, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. In my report to the Assembly yesterday, I said that the world needs a strong and sustainably financed WHO. And today, you have taken a decisive step in that direction. This is a historic moment. The decision point you have adopted will transform the way this organization is funded. But it will also transform the way this organization works. It will give us a predictable and sustainable funding platform from which to deliver long-term programming in countries. It will enable us to attract and retain the experts we need. And it will enable us to give all member states the support you need to protect and promote the health of your people. I also welcome your decision to consider the feasibility of a replenishment model for WHO. We look forward to consulting with member states to develop this idea. Yesterday, we formally launched WHO's new investment case, a healthy return. It shows that every $1 invested in WHO delivers a return of at least $35. Sustainable financing for WHO is not a charity. It's an investment in a healthier, safer, and more equitable societies with huge benefits for employment, productivity, poverty reduction, and development. We recognize that you have high expectations, and so you should. You're right to expect greater accountability, transparency, and efficiency. The Secretariat is committed to continuous improvement in these areas, building on the work we have already done. I'm honored and thankful for your commitment to WHO, and I appreciate your continued trust and support. I'm especially grateful to Bjorn Kummel and the members of the Bureau for their work over the last 18 months. Vielen Dank, Bjorn and colleagues. I look forward to working with all member states to make this organization the best it can be, because that's what the people we serve need and deserve. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again for your trust and confidence in the election earlier today, and look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. Is the committee ready to note the reports contained in documents A75/9 and A75/54? The reports are noted. Is the committee now ready to approve the draft decision contained in document A75/9? No amendments have been proposed in this decision. I therefore take it that the committee is prepared to approve this decision. The decision is approved. Okay. Okay. And then I will hand over to her.
Yeah, you can read all that for the chair.
And then chair it over, okay?
And he should be arriving.
Okay. Now the agenda item is closed. We will return to agenda item 16, public health emergencies, preparedness and response. Under Pillar 2, 1 billion more people better protected from health emergencies. Subitem 16.2, strengthening WHO preparedness for and response to health emergencies. You may recall that we began our discussion on the consideration of the report of the Director General, which transmits the report of the working group on strengthening WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies to the Health Assembly, contained in document A75/17, which also contains a draft decision for consideration, and document A75/18, as well as A75/conf/7, a draft resolution entitled Strengthening WHO Preparedness for and Response to Health Emergencies. Proposal for amendments to the International Health Regulations 2005. The remaining documents under this sub-item will be considered separately. Just to clarify, in this first discussion, we are first only considering documents A75/17, A75/18, and A75/A/conf7. You will recall that I have closed the list of speakers before we suspended this item. And then Mozambique and India.
They are not there. Yeah, and then Mozambique.
Okay. Delegates, I now give the floor to St. Kitts and Nevis, followed by Mozambique and India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairperson and esteemed delegates, in response to document A7517, the St. Kitts and Nevis would like to thank WHO for tremendous work done in response to COVID-19 pandemic, the COVID-19 tools, and IHR simulation exercises. The Federation, as a small island developing state, has benefited significantly. The Federation has been successful in containing 4 waves of the COVID-19 infections with over 5,600 confirmed cases and only 43 COVID-19 related deaths. The Federation has achieved one of the highest COVID-19 vaccination rates in the Caribbean sub-region, with 57% of total population fully vaccinated. The Federation is well on its way in achieving the WHO target of vaccinating 70% of all people by mid-year. However, vaccine hesitancy is the biggest stumbling block to achieving this goal. Regarding the other 3 WHO targets, the Federation has surpassed the minimum testing rate, and our essential workers are adequately protected. All patients diagnosed with COVID-19 have equitable access to care. St. Kitts and Nevis adopted a COVID-19 care model that is unique, whereby all laboratory-confirmed cases of COVID-19 are monitored virtually by a team of case managers from date of diagnosis to recovery. The overall aim of this approach is to reduce the total number of cases who progress to moderate and severe disease. This model worked in achieving 2 objectives. 1, maintaining a low hospitalization rate, and 2, maintaining low number of COVID-19 related deaths. Our success in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic thus far can be attributed to the support from WHO and to the following strategies, and these include adoption of an all-of-government and all-of-society approach, 2, public health interventions grounded in the latest scientific data, 3, maintenance of effective risk communication, 4, strengthening of our health system. The pandemic is not over, and there are other emerging health threats. As a SIDS, we look forward to continued support from WHO in sustaining our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, other health emergencies, along with the concurrent delivery of equitable and essential health services. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis commends the efforts of the WGPR and supports the recommendations contained in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, St. Kitts. Delegates, I will now, before we transfer, before Mozambique takes the floor, I will now transfer to my Vice Chair, Dr. Tamar Gabonia of Georgia, who will now preside over this session. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Richards, for leading this session. Distinguished delegates, we can now continue discussion on agenda item 16, and I will now invite the delegate of Mozambique to take the floor, to be followed by the delegate from India. Mozambique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mozambique is aligned with the statement delivered by the distinguished delegate from Botswana on behalf of the 47 member states of the African region. As we learned from COVID-19 pandemic, Mozambique's response was efficiently coordinated by government with partner participation at all levels. However, Mozambique faces recurrent emergency, so we understand that the holistic approach and health system strengthening are vital for improvement of emergency preparedness and response. Therefore, Mozambique acknowledges strengthening of WHO preparedness for response to health emergency will directly strengthen the country's capability on domestic and global resource mobilization and allocation to improve technical skills for preparedness and response to recurrent emergency and other public health threatening events. Go down. Regarding to polio emergency, Mozambique, with the Global Partnership for Polio Elimination Support, has been promptly responding to isolated cases of vaccinal polio virus and to this case of salvage polio virus notified on 14 May 2022. In Mozambique, the last salvage polio virus outbreak was notified in 1993, and in June 2016, Mozambique was certified as a salvage polio-free country. For this outbreak, Mozambique is responding in a coordinated manner with our neighboring countries. As main component of response to salvage polio virus outbreak, Mozambique has already conducted 2 of the 4 planned vaccination rounds, having reached the established targets. The country is preparing for the 3rd round that will cover the entire country. This response is government-led with support of the Global Partnership for Polio Elimination. Thank you very much.
I thank you, the delegate of Mozambique. Just to kindly remind all delegates that we are now discussing agenda items A75/17, A75/18, A75/8/7. I now would like to invite the delegate of India to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. India believes that amendment in the IHR should be a member state-driven process through meaningful consultations. The text proposed for amendment must be negotiated by the member states and not by the expert group alone through a consensus process. Certain proposals which propose a substantial change by extending the process related to objections and acceptance of reservation under Article 62 to IHR as early harvesting needs further detailed discussion. India proposes that any mechanism for amendment of HR should be based on consideration of all proposals from various member states together in order to make the process holistic, comprehensive, inclusive, and efficient. India proposes that peer review of IHR implementation should at best be voluntary and self-assessment by the member states as per the tools provided by the WHO and shall be treated as an objective assessment by countries. Chair, WHO should take steps to ensure that distributed manufacturing of medical countermeasures is promoted with particular focus on low and middle income countries so as to ensure equity and accessibility to world at large. The issue of access to financial resources and technological capabilities in preparedness and response should also be linked to affordability and value for money approach. India supports establishment of regional manufacturing capacities, transfer of technology and know-how, as well as strengthening regulatory work in developing countries. India suggests that financial support from non-state actors for health emergency prevention, preparedness and response should not be used for standard setting or normative purposes, as it is against the principles of FENSA. For increased adequate and equitable financing, India suggests WHO to design and replenishment mechanism in consultation with respective member states for a contingency fund for emergencies, including disbursement criteria and operating process, especially to improve sustainability and transparency. Chair, India suggests One Health approach should be prioritized as a guiding principle for pandemic management. WHO's effort at strengthening existing tripartite partnership of WHO, FAO, and OIE by the inviting United Nations Environment Programme are appreciated. There is a need to strengthen core capacities for networking of human, animal, and laboratory surveillance for early warning signs, timely detection of potential threats, and adequate preparedness for containment. India recommends developing a global framework or specialized protocol for benefit sharing for non-influenza pandemic on the lines of pandemic influenza preparedness framework consistent with the objective of Convention of Biological Diversity and Nagoya Protocol through a member state-led process. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you, the delegate of India. Now I would like to give the floor to the delegate from Santa Lucia, followed by Austria.
It's blinking. Go ahead. President, Chairperson, and delegates, St. Lucia has reviewed the various documents in relation to strengthening WHO's preparedness for and response to health emergencies and recognize the need for ongoing capacity building to ensure countries are in a state of readiness to mitigate and respond to a myriad of emergencies and disasters, including diseases and conditions that impact the nation. St. Lucia has taken note and continues to prepare its response system to be in line with WHO's emergency response framework, which ensures the management of all higher graded emergencies through a WHO incident management system. We also support the draft document Plan of Action by the 4 organizations working towards the One Health approach through a common strategy. St. Lucia appreciates the great work done by WHO in fulfilling the critical functions of leadership, partnership, coordination, planning, health operations, technical expertise, logistics and finance and administration, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. Of critical importance is the strengthening of the IHR core capacities using a holistic approach and the integration of core capacities for emergency preparedness, surveillance and response within the broader health system and essential public functions. The Ministry acknowledges the effort made by WHO to be in a state of readiness for the deployment of mobile teams and to reinforce health facilities, improve surveillance and conduct vaccination campaigns, the distribution of medicines and supplies and the training of healthcare workers as exemplified in the report. Using the technical, financial and material support provided, St. Lucia was able to be in a state of readiness to rapidly detect, identify and manage COVID-19 cases. The country also benefited from vaccines through the COVAX facility in response to this COVID-19 pandemic. In responding to WHO's work in emergency, St. Lucia will be able to mitigate the impact of public health emergencies, thus contributing to Pillar 2, where 1 billion more people will be protected from health emergencies. In concluding, St. Lucia applauds the work of WHO and its executive board members in preparing for and responding to health emergencies according to the WHO Emergency Response Framework. St. Lucia therefore supports WHO in its effort to build capacity to further support nations during this time of emergencies requiring external support. Thank you.
I thank you, the delegate of Santa Lucia, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Lebanon, to be followed by Germany. Lebanon, the floor is yours.
Hi, sorry to delay. I sent you a speech already.
I sent it, but I made a lot of changes.
Thank you. Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates, my country's delegation commends the work of WHO on strengthening One Health collaborations and on implementing the international health regulations. More specifically, we would like to applaud the tackling of Resolution WHA 74.7 in a timely manner by the Secretariat and the subsequent rapid development of a One Health joint plan of action by the new quadripartite. We also align ourselves with WHO's statement that One Health is an important pillar of health emergency preparedness and response, and that it should be at the center of policymaking. The importance of the environmental dimension and the subsequent incorporation of the UNEP in the One Health tripartite falls in line with Lebanon's effort to establish a sustainable collaboration and cooperation between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Agriculture. Despite the ongoing economic crisis, the country is working on developing frameworks and policies that potentiate the implementation of a One Health initiative and the international health regulations, build the capacity of both the public and private sector, and provide guidance to workers in all related sectors. Lebanon's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic on a national level during the past 2 years proved to be successful. However, it shed light on the importance of developing public health emergency preparedness and response mechanisms. We believe that the international health regulations and One Health initiatives are the cornerstone of such processes, and Lebanon is committed to supporting WHO's advances in these areas nationally, regionally, and globally. Finally, we believe that the world needs to stress on the proper contextual implementation of the IHR primarily, and we are looking forward to an efficient collaboration with the Secretariat so that together we can improve the health security of the generations to come. Thank you.
I thank the delegate of Lebanon, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Germany, to be followed by plurinational state of Bolivia. Germany, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Germany aligns itself with the statement delivered by France on behalf of the European Union and its member states. It is now time to implement lessons learned, take the right actions, and not lose the political momentum for ambitious actions. Two important processes are gaining momentum. First, the negotiating process for a new pandemic agreement. We hope that the Health Assembly in May 2024 will endorse an ambitious text. Second, in parallel, we are working towards targeted amendments of the 2005 International Health Regulations. We would welcome if this Health Assembly took a first step on this road by agreeing on the amendment of Article 59 of the IHR. A new pandemic agreement and a revised IHR will constitute the legal cornerstones of a strengthened architecture of global health emergency preparedness and response. Germany commends the DG for his vision paper on this subject. His proposals are building on the work of various reviews, panels and consultations. Germany would like to stress two elements of this complex. First, proper implementation of capacities and compliance with the IHR and also with the new agreement are key, and we need tools that facilitate improved implementation and compliance. The Universal Health and Preparedness Review will be a game changer, building on the positive experiences of other peer reviews, such as the very successful human rights mechanism. This is not about punishing member states, but about finding better ways to improve collective preparedness and response, and creating a necessary atmosphere of trust. Second, Germany currently holds the G7 presidency. Foreign ministers agreed on an ambitious action plan aligned with the WHO global vaccination strategy to boost last-mile efforts and contribute to bringing the pandemic to an end. G7 health ministers discussed G7 contributions to strengthen WHO and better global pandemic preparedness. One particular focus is better collaborative surveillance and better predictable response. Here we need to build on a network approach which contains centers such as the recently established WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence in Berlin, in the global north and south. Such centers must be part of health systems with core public health functions and ensure training and maintenance of a true global emergency workforce. It is exactly this health emergency workforce which needs to be always ready, strong, and must be embedded in a sustainable manner in the communities they serve. This is why we call for a pact for pandemic readiness. Thank you.
I thank you, the delegate of Germany. I now invite the delegate of a plurinational state of Bolivia to be followed by Hungary. State of Bolivia, the floor is yours.
Are they there? They are not there.
Oh. Is delegate from the state of Bolivia present in the room? Okay. I now would like to invite the delegate of Hungary to take the floor. Is delegate of Hungary in the room?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Honored President, dear colleagues, Hungary aligns itself with the statement delivered by France on behalf of the EU and its member states. Hungary has been committed to implement and comply with the international health regulations. Building and strengthening capacities has great importance for us, and we are ready to cooperate with the WHO and its member states to ensure that provisions of the IHR are effectively implemented. Hungary agrees with the structured process of working on targeted amendments proposed by the WGPR. We also wish to contribute to the development of a pandemic agreement complementary to IHR to ensure that member states and the WHO are well equipped to identify, assess and address health emergencies, including pandemics. The white paper of the Director General on Global Health Architecture is welcome and needs to be further discussed. We welcome the commitment of the WHO to put One Health approach into the center as a key pillar of human and planetary health. Environmental disasters threatening water and food security, pandemics, and humanitarian crises, together with major obstacles in healthcare sector, such as growing antimicrobial resistance, all require coordinated global efforts to mitigate their devastating effects and secure human health and safety. We therefore fully support the inclusion of the UNEP in WHO, FAO and OIE tripartite collaboration to widen and strengthen united efforts. Hungary has a 30-year-long commitment towards health and environment. It is our privilege to chair the Protocol on Water and Health from 2023. In July 2023, Budapest will host the 7th Ministerial Conference on Environment and Health of WHO region, Europe region, where I invite you all. We encourage to build bridges between geographically, culturally, economically and politically diverse countries to facilitate transformation of policies to practice. Hungary has started the transition to a more resilient, emergency-prepared health system, making the One Health concept operational. To facilitate the process, we initiated a dialogue to strengthen WHO country capacities with the aim of serving wider regional needs. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the delegate of Hungary, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Brunei Darussalam, to be followed by Brazil. Is the delegate of Brunei Darussalam in the room? Yes. Please.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Please go ahead.
Chair, Brunei Darussalam's intervention concerns A7518, the proposal for amendments to the IHR, and the proposed text. We welcome reforms to global health security systems, and over the last year supported efforts by the Health Assembly to commence work on developing a new international instrument for pandemic preparedness and response. This work should be prioritized. At the same time, we note that there is now a concrete proposal for consideration by this committee to amend the IHR to include the Universal Health and Preparedness Review, the development of early warning criteria for public health emergencies, and new reporting requirements for countries overseen by a compliance committee. On these proposed amendments, it is unfortunate that they focus mainly on compliance and reporting mechanisms, but make scant mention of any obligation for countries not to hoard medical supplies during a public health emergency, or block the global supply of medical countermeasures, or tangibly assist other countries in need. These are key gaps that have been a notable failure of the global COVID-19 response. Further, given the ongoing development of the International Pandemic Preparedness Instrument, agreed by the Health Assembly, the timing of the proposed amendments by the IHR means that there is a real risk that member states may be forced to consider reforms in multiple parallel processes that duplicate each other. We therefore seek clarity on how these two processes are related and the steps that will be taken to mitigate against potential duplication of work. Brunei Darussalam's position is clear. A streamlined process to existing global health security instruments and the related review mechanisms are needed. At the same time, the reform process should focus on equity, healthcare access, and an acknowledgement of the greater responsibility for well-resourced, high-income countries to do their part in global health emergencies. An overemphasis on reporting requirements and compliance and outlined in the proposed IHR amendments will inevitably disproportionately impact smaller countries. Importantly, the reform process should not be at the expense of urgent implementation of the best available digital tools here and now to establish a global data sharing, surveillance and response mechanism that is fit for purpose. Brunei Darussalam will play our part in accelerating the changes needed to make our world safer, and we call on all countries to do the same. Thank you.
I thank you, the delegate of Brunei Darussalam, and I now would like to give the floor to the delegate of Brazil, to be followed by the delegate of Indonesia. Brazil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil thanks the Secretariat for the information provided in the reports under consideration and extends its appreciation to the Member States that presented resolution under these agenda items. We have been actively involved in discussion in strengthening WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies, including the work undertaken by the WGPR. Throughout these discussions, we have emphasized the central role of the IHR for the global health architecture on emergency preparedness and response. Brazil supports the establishment of the Working Group on IHR amendments to work exclusively on consideration of proposed IHR-targeted amendments and emphasize the importance of coordinating with the INB process, including through regular coordination between the two bureaus and alignment of meeting schedules and work plans. Brazil believes that better prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery of health emergencies will only be achieved through universal health coverage, primary health care, broad and equitable access to health countermeasures, and strong health systems. In our reading, the proposed actions and initiatives foreseen in the report relate to the general aim of combating health emergencies in general and should not be limited to extreme pandemic situations. We also believe that in order to strengthen public health policies, especially prevention, preparedness, and response to health emergencies, it is essential to consider the One Health approach in a balanced way, taking care not to overestimate its environmental and climatic aspects to the detriment of social determinants of health and the strengthening of national health systems. We highlight our support for the resolution on strengthening health emergency preparedness in cities and at the urban level, as we also consider it important to strengthen local emergency preparedness and response capacities to build strong and resilient national health system. Regarding the Universal Health and Preparedness Review Mechanism, Brazil supports a transparent, voluntary, peer review mechanism that will promote sharing of best practices with an overarching goal of promoting international cooperation in order to strengthen the implementation of the IHR. We are engaged to continue discussions about this initiative. I thank you.
I thank the delegate of Brazil, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Indonesia, to be followed by the delegate of Colombia.
Thank you, Madam President. Indonesia aligns itself with a statement by Thailand on behalf of CRO member states. Our appreciation goes to the Bureau for the work in the past year to facilitate the discussion within the WGPR. WGPR has indeed been monumental in finding consensus on the establishment of the intergovernmental negotiation body and the proposed IHR amendment process. Indonesia appreciates that equity has stayed prominently as reflected in the report. We reiterate our support that equity should not be limited to access to countermeasures, but go beyond to cover all aspects of health emergencies to strengthen and empower national and regional health system resilience. In this regard, we would like to highlight the following. Sustainable actions such as strengthening and expanding manufacturing capacity in developing countries to lessen dependency in fulfilling its national needs to be continued. This includes establishing research hubs in developing countries, capacities to improve capacities to develop and detect potential health emergencies. Developing a comprehensive framework to address the issue of access and benefit sharing under the WHO should be considered. Any data and sample sharing has to be consistent with the existing legal frameworks such as the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Nagoya Protocol. On IHR amendment, we support an inclusive process, including through limited and targeted amendment. Amendments should address issues and challenges such as equity and technological know-how that could not effectively be addressed otherwise but are critical to support effective implementation and compliance of the IHR. It should also improve coordination and collaboration on travel measures, in particular, the development of standards of the international certificate of vaccination that can prevent unnecessary restriction of travel among and between countries. Once established, the WGIHR and INB process should work in a complementary manner to ensure that less resourced countries can fully engage on equal footing. Finally, Madam President, we note that the Secretariat's white paper on health emergency and preparedness and response should be served to inform and not to create a parallel track from the member states-led process. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the delegate of Indonesia, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Colombia, to be followed by the delegate of Bhutan. The delegate of Colombia, the floor is yours.
Colombia welcomes the work that has been done to improve emergency preparedness and response, as well as the modernization of the IHR. Particularly, we believe the amendment process for the IHR an opportunity for us to consolidate national basic capacities, as long as this is done in a complementary fashion, and so that it avoids reopening and renegotiating the IHR, guaranteeing coordination with processes such as the INB, and avoiding the duplication of mandates or work, because this would affect the available budget of the WHO as well as that of different countries. As part of this process, we support and recognize the viability of moving forward on specific amendments such as the proposed Article 59 of the IHR, and this would allow us to move forward and ensure that we can strengthen information about events, have better management of early warning systems, and improve the role of the WHO, as well as support to states. Madam Chair, we welcome the complex work that has been done by the member states in the working group to discuss and find consensus on vital matters. Therefore, we also recognize that it is necessary for us to find common ground so that we can focus on promoting One Health. And this would allow us to work with other sectors such as environmental health, plant health, and animal health are also committed to and involved in surveillance and response. We also need to learn the lessons from the past. Madam Chair, we need to ensure that we look at the required human talent to respond to health emergencies, particularly when it comes to field epidemiologists who are vital. Finally, I would like to remind everybody that our basic ability to respond to emergencies is no doubt something that needs to be met. Nonetheless, there is a great diversity between different countries. Therefore, we need to build on standards so that we can take into consideration the differences between national capacities. Thank you.
I thank the delegate of Colombia, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Bhutan, to be followed by United Kingdom. The delegate of Bhutan, the floor is yours. Is the delegate of Bhutan in the room?
Is Bhutan in the room? Can someone check? Bhutan? Bhutan is in the room.
I will now give the floor to the delegate of United Kingdom, to be followed by the delegate of Japan. United Kingdom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Before I proceed, we were planning to intervene on this item to introduce document Conf 9, which is the proposed resolution on clinical trials. I understand you don't want a discussion of that this evening. Could I just check that we'll have an opportunity to introduce that at some other time, and do you know when? Thanks.
Yes, we will have a chance to discuss it later during the session. We'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that case, just very briefly on IHR, just to confirm that, like many others, the United Kingdom, a strong supporter of the IHR and its implementation. We provide support to a number of countries to help with implementation. We believe in it's a vital instrument at our disposal, and it needs to remain appropriate and in touch with the challenges of the situations that we're now facing, including the way that situation has evolved. We are, as a result, keen to see the IHR continue to be a very relevant tool for WHO and its members. Thank you.
Thank you, the delegate of the United Kingdom. We will continue discussion on agenda items which were mentioned for this particular session. For other items, we will get back to you on specific time slot for the discussion. I would like now to invite the delegate of Japan to be followed by the delegate of Saudi Arabia. The delegate of Japan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, Japan commends the extensive work done in the WGPL since the last Health Assembly to present this comprehensive report with proposed actions and considerations for onward work. We thank the WGPL co-chair, Ambassador Gurata of Indonesia, and Mr. Colin McIff of the United States of America, as well as Vice Chair Dr. James Lin of Singapore, who represented the Western Pacific region in the Bureau. We are optimistic that the working group will be remembered for its two historic successes, the establishment of the intergovernmental negotiating body and the transformation of the WGPL into a focused working group to consider proposed targeted amendments to the IHR. Japan welcomes the WGPL's proposal for a formal member state-led process to extensively consider the IHR, as well as the opportunity to hear experts' advice through the IHR review committees. As a committed member of the INB under the Bureau, we feel that this decision point is critical to ensure complementarity between IHR and the new instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. In addition, Japan strongly supports and co-sponsors the U.S. draft resolution on amendments to Article 59 of the IHR. This is crucial as we strive to strengthen health emergency response in a rapid and effective manner. With the WGIHL and the INB working hand in hand, we are confident that the world will be steps closer to achieving strengthened implementation and compliance to the IHL. Surveillance through a One Health approach, rapid information sharing, health systems for universal health coverage, and R&D and clinical trials to develop life-saving countermeasures. Secondly, Japan co-sponsors Singapore's resolution on strengthening health emergency preparedness and response in cities and urban settings. We are optimistic that this resolution under the WHO framework sparks conversation among member states to share and learn good practices. Finally, Japan welcomes Dr. Tedros' paper on global architecture for HEPA. It provides opportunities for member states to discuss further and on elements related to the COVID-19 recommendations and potential action proposed by the WGPR. We look forward for the future development of this paper after it delivers inputs from important stakeholders in global health. We hope this paper in its developed form serves as a compass to guide our collective efforts toward a stronger and more inclusive health emergency preparedness and response aligned with the ongoing discussion in other international venues. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the delegate of Japan, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Saudi Arabia, to be followed by the delegate of Switzerland.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia welcomes the international efforts with regard to preparedness and response to health emergencies. And also we value the efforts of the WGPR and thank this team for their efforts over the past period. We would like to point out that I was honored to represent the EMRO region in this team, and we would like to reaffirm that the IHRs are a highly valuable tool in responding to health emergencies and crises, and we need to draw the necessary lessons from the pandemic in this regard. And we commend the role of WHO in enhancing the preparedness and response to health emergencies internationally and supporting member states in building their human resources in the field of surveillance and response to health emergencies, and to adopt further harmonious measures in many fields which can direct the efforts of the WHO to the most where they are most needed in member states. And we need to further develop these efforts to meet future challenges in terms of funding and focusing on equity, comprehensiveness, and building on the proposals for the IHR amendments, and the further efforts in response and preparedness for health emergencies, and the further consultations taking place among the many international fora with civil society organizations in enhancing our preparedness and response to health emergencies and achieving a unified outcome that achieves consensus. This will require further time and efforts. The IHRs need to be enhanced in their implementation on the local and regional levels, and with the contribution of all those parties concerned, and further the participation of all concerned sectors on international, regional, and local levels in the One Health approach. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I thank the delegate of Saudi Arabia, and now I would like to give the floor to the delegate of Switzerland, to be followed by the delegate of Bahrain.
Madam Chairperson, we welcome that an agreement could finally be found on the draft report to the 75th WHA and the Member States Working Group on the Preparedness and Response to Health Crises. We are mindful of the fact that the possible activities which are envisaged in Annex 3 of this report will require deeper exchanges of views between member states as part of the process of the governing bodies of the WHO. We would specifically like to applaud the decision point, which is at the end of the report of the WGPR, and which proposes a negotiation process for negotiating the amendments to the IHR. As we've already said many times, Switzerland is in favor of strengthening the IHR, which is a key part of the international health architecture. We are ready to examine and discuss in a more thorough fashion the amendment proposals targeting the IHR as part of the future working group on the amendments to the IHR. In our work to come, we must ensure that there's coherence and avoid any, of course, duplication with other existing processes, specifically the INB. Moreover, we welcome the fact that a tangible amendment proposal has been tabled already to WHA this year. The amendments that have been proposed to Article 59 of the IHR will allow us to save time with the entry into force of other amendments to come. We cherish the hope that this proposal for amendments, with its potential advantages, be a key for success that we can carry out over the next 2 years in order to strengthen the efficiency of the IHR. Lastly, we would like to thank the Secretariat for the summary notes on the status of health, and we support this. In this regard, Switzerland will continue its commitment to the establishment and the group related to that. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the delegate of Switzerland, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Bahrain, to be followed by the delegate of Fiji. The Bahrain, the floor is yours. Is the delegate of Bahrain in the room? Then I would like to invite the delegate of Fiji to take the floor, to to be followed by the Delegate of Sudan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have experienced how costly it is to be merely responsive than being proactive. And vulnerable and fragile small island communities, as in the Western Pacific region, amongst others, have paid the ultimate and high price, both with our lives and our economies. We have now accumulated adequate information through research and audits that should enhance our preparation for any future pandemics. This has been further strengthened by the Working Group on Preparedness and Response, and we thank the Bureau and all those behind the scenes for this critical piece of work. Fiji is ready to accept this report and its recommendations. We also recognize the significance of reviewing the IHR 2005 as a step in the right direction. As it relates to the INB process, Fiji has been supporting this call since its infancy, and this file must be completed within the time frame. Madam Chair, this is the time to remain focused, hope for the best, expect the worst, and prepare appropriately for the future at all levels. Small island developing states like Fiji, as in the Pacific, are at the forefront of multiple health emergencies beyond pandemic. For the effective preparedness of our vulnerable communities, we need an effective framework. We need resourcing and meaningful partnership that will also form the element of the implementation mechanism of these two working documents. I thank you.
I thank the Delegate of Fiji, and I now give the floor to the Delegate of Sudan, to be followed by the Delegate of Canada. Is Delegate of Sudan in the room? I now give the floor to Delegate of Canada, to be followed by Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair. Canada deeply appreciates the hard work and strategic thinking that went into the no less than 7 documents that are being discussed under these agenda items. These complex, detailed proposals and reports require careful thought and consideration, as they should, because we are talking about nothing less than how we are going to keep our future selves and loved ones safer and healthier when the next health emergency hits. The COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated how health emergencies can exacerbate structural and systemic issues not only within our public health systems, but also in the social, economic, and security sectors. We have witnessed how quickly these systems can be overwhelmed, often with a disproportionate impact on those experiencing inequities, in particular vulnerable and marginalized populations, including women and girls. There is a window of opportunity that we must seize to strengthen public health systems and enhance collaboration with other key sectors. This includes strengthening prevention, preparedness, and response at all levels to address emerging and future public health and health security challenges, such as pandemics and climate change. The WGPR has been a critical forum to advance these conversations, and we are grateful for the co-chairs and the Bureau for their leadership and perseverance in guiding member states through these complex discussions. We welcome the WGPR report and, in particular, the clear forward path to consider amendments to the international health regulations. We thank the U.S. for their leadership in advancing discussions on possible IHR amendments by considering amendments that are limited in scope and that aim to address specific and clearly identify issues, challenges, or gaps. We can strengthen this foundational instrument together. Canada, therefore, would like to be added to the list of co-sponsors on the decision related to this agenda item. Canada also strongly supports efforts to enhance shared accountability for health emergencies. The UHPR, as currently proposed, is a first step. It can provide a foundation to build a more streamlined, nimbler, and strategic process focused on shared learning and informed by independent assessments. But to do this, member states must be consulted and routinely updated on the implementation of the voluntary pilot. whole of government, whole of society, and One Health approaches will be key to our work. We need to meaningfully engage with a variety of sectors and actors to improve our efforts to address health emergencies going forward. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the delegate of Canada, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Russian Federation, to be followed by the delegate of Bahamas.
Distinguished Madam Chair, the IHR have for the last half-decade been a reference for international work in pandemic response, and we must protect them. The Russian Federation shares the views on the need to update these regulations together with other partners from the CIS, and we have proposed an amendment on this. Our proposal aims to strengthen the coordinating role of the lab infrastructures and developing regional networks for the WHO and ensure unfettered access to personnel and to means to fight pandemics. The IHR should not undermine the sovereignty of countries in biosafety. The regulations are an instrument for cooperation and partnership and not for control or punishment. And we believe that it's unacceptable to amend the regulations in a way which would create a precedent for intervention into the domestic affairs of countries, or carrying out international investigation without the consent of member countries, or using publicly available data which has not been verified by the countries in question. Russia makes a considerable contribution to regional preparedness and response. We continue to support the WHO through voluntary contributions, for example, to implement the IHR programs, together with our partners in the CIS, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in Latin America. And thanks to the funds of the Russian Federation, research is being carried out on new infections, lab capacity is being developed, and personnel is being trained. Russia initiated as part of the Global Outbreak and Response Network, a network of mobile labs, which have been very useful during the pandemic. Over the last 7 years, more than 20 mobile labs have been set up and sent to some 12 different countries, and we are continuing this work. In 2021, together with the WHO and the Robert Koch Institute, we developed standards for mobile labs, and we carried out our first international training seminars. In 2021, there were 2 new WHO collaborative centers that were set up in the Russian Federation. First one on pandemic response, and the second on influenza, which is working on international preparedness. And we've worked also on COVID-19. We are against any mandatory external assessment of national capacity for preparedness and response. And that's why we're a bit skeptical on the idea of a universal periodic review for preparedness and response systems. We're afraid that this might lead to discrimination, stigmatization against countries who refuse to participate in such reviews. We need to strengthen the WHO as the main international architecture for responding to and dealing with the risks of epidemics. Its multilateral approach protects the interests of all countries with no exception, and their rights to have access to essential measures against epidemics, such as access to diagnosis and treatment. And any attempts to weaken the WHO, such as complementary measures or actually, duplicating measures for mechanisms of international biosafety should not be allowed. We also are looking forward to work with the WHO as part of the One Health approach, and we welcome the high-level expert group on this. We thank the expert group and its bureau for their constructive and inclusive work that has been indefatigable in efforts. The world is expecting from the WHO practical professional decisions in pandemic response. The Russian Federation is open to joint work with the WHO and also with all partners to make sure that the WHO's goal is completed, and the goal is to protect the health of all from future pandemics. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
I thank the delegate of the Russian Federation, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Bahamas.
WHO's Preparedness for and Response to Health Emergencies. Madam Chair, global health security is underpinned by solidarity and actions. The WHO has undoubtedly exhibited exemplary leadership through many public health crises. The Bahamas thanks and lauds the Director General for the organization's steadfast, resolute work during this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Strengthening the global architecture for health emergency preparedness, response, and resilience is no longer optional. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it clear that fighting a global pandemic requires a range of political and economic engagement that goes beyond WHO's sole remit. The Bahamas recognizes the need for sustainable financing and supports increases in assessed contributions. The leadership role of the WHO and in research and development and promoting equitable access to medical products and devices is commendable and has reaped benefits for member states. Madam Chair, the Bahamas acknowledges the need for targeted revisions in the IHR for greater flexibility, however cautions that these revisions must be considered systemically through a member state-led diverse technical committee with IHR compliance potential considerations. We request the Secretariat to continue supporting countries to strengthen their capacity and report the information required under the IHR through streamlining reporting, processing, and improved tools. Madam Chair, the Bahamas applauds the Director General for the progress made with the establishment of a quadripartite One Health collaboration. While public health has always necessitated multi-stakeholder collaborations, the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that strengthened alliances and agreements for addressing upstream determinants and contributions to human morbidity and mortality are no longer negotiable. We must act now. The draft Joint Plan of Action is a step in the right direction. There is indeed one health, and coexisting in healthy, safe environments must be an absolute. The Bahamas supports the collaboration of One Health and urges WHO and the quadripartite agencies to allocate resources for naturalizing and putting into action with support to member states for enhanced technical guidance on multi-agency integration for successful conceptualization and acceptance of the interdependence. I thank you.
I thank you, the Delegate of Bahamas. I will now give the floor to Delegate of Spain. I believe we have the video to get this contribution. Can I ask for the video for the Delegate of Spain?
Señoras y señores de la Presidencia.
Chair, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our conversation covers 16.3 and 16.2. Spain aligns itself with the declaration that was made by France on behalf of the European Union and its member states on the strengthening of the WHO in the face of health emergencies. We consider it essential, the work that has been carried out up until now. We are grateful for the reforms put forward by the Director General, and we align ourselves with the work within the One Health framework. We have to have a world that's better prepared to prevent and deal with health emergencies, and we need to cover people, animals, and the environment under the same rules. That's why we agree with the joint plan from the Quadra Group for the One Health plan, and we will make sure that our state public health unit will look at public health preparation for health emergencies and all issues linked to environmental issues. And we also consider that the IHR are the ideal mechanism for strengthening of the WHO, and this helps us to strengthen countries on a local level. And so we think it's necessary to keep strengthening the capacity when it comes to events of chemical origin at the entry point. And we support the European Union on the proposals for the presentation of the reports, but we consider it is essential that we have a national network of focal points so that we can apply the regulations in all countries so that we can detect health events early. We think that despite all the progress, we think there are still many countries that have to respond to situations of risk, in particular in areas affected by conflict. So we need solid and safe healthcare systems and universal health coverage. Finally, Spain would like to use this opportunity to thank the WHO and the member states for all of their work. Many thanks.
I thank the delegate of Spain, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Austria, to be followed by delegate of Albania. Austria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Austria fully aligns itself with the statement delivered by France on behalf of the EU and its member states. Firstly, Austria thanks the Director General for his report on strengthening the collaboration of One Health, as it attaches great importance to this topic. We welcome the development of the draft One Health Joint Plan of Action and are looking forward to its rollout and implementation. Secondly, Austria reiterates its commitment to the strengthening of the international health regulations, as well as to the development of a new instrument for pandemic prevention, preparedness and response, and is looking forward to engaging further in both processes. Furthermore, we appreciate the DG's proposal to strengthen the global architecture for preparedness, prevention and response. They are important measures to be able to meet the future challenges in an appropriate manner. We cannot go back to the old normal. This is why Austria initiated a debate among member states to strengthen the oversight capacities of the Executive Board in the case a fake has been declared, and also in interpandemic times. The establishment of the new Executive Board Standing Committee on Pandemic Preparedness and Response will be an important contribution to strengthening WHO's pandemic emergency governance. It will help to improve the organization's rapid and member states-driven decision-making process and will essentially contribute to raise the profile of the WHO in global health. Austria is looking forward to the consideration of the respective decision, as well as the terms of reference by EB 151. And we also would like to express gratitude that we reached consensus among member states in a series of informal consultations to establish this standing committee. Let me close by reiterating that WHO is the only platform of transparency and inclusiveness for all member states. Thank you.
I thank the delegate of Austria, and I now give the floor to the delegate of Albania, to be followed by Timor-Leste. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, Excellencies, dear colleagues, Albania aligns itself with the statement delivered by the EU earlier today and will deliver some remarks in its national capacity. Albania is one of the co-sponsors of the WAJ 74.7/2021 resolution on strengthening WHO preparedness for and response to health emergencies, and we strongly believe in the key leadership role of the WHO within the United Nations system in preparing for, catalyzing and coordinating a comprehensive, early, effective, transparent, sustainable response to health emergencies. Since 2021, the WHO community has made progress towards this goal. The WGPR has produced its consensual reports. WHO had its special session in November last year that established the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, INB, to draft and negotiate a WHO Convention, agreement, or other international instruments of pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response, with a view to adoption under Article 19 or under other provisions of the WHO constitutions, and the INB has started its work. As one of the countries that made a bold call for a new global agreement on strengthening WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies, we remain convinced that the legally binding treaty, convention, or agreement under the auspices of WHO has the potential of providing the world with an ambitious framework to better prevent, prepare, and respond to the future pandemics and epidemics. One important element of the pandemic treaty must be the One Health approach. Our health is a continuum across human, animal, plant, and planetary health. To reduce the risk of zoonotic diseases in the future, the human, animal, and environmental health sectors must cooperate more closely. The new instrument could strengthen existing platforms and surveillance and promote specific countermeasures in line with the One Health approach, built on robust health systems at national level. Albania welcomes the draft Joint Plan of Action on One Health, which provisions a framework for world to better prevent, predict, detect, and respond to health threats and improve the health of humans, animals, plants, and the environment, while contributing to sustainable development by combining the work and the expertise of other institutions as FAO, OIE, and UNEP. We also welcome the DG's view on strengthening the global architecture and the health emergencies preparedness and response, which must be built on a foundation of strong national health systems that are deeply connected with accountable to the communities they serve by protecting and advancing gender equity and human rights. Albania believes that addressing the fragmentation that weakens the current global architecture is key to recovery for achieving the health-related SDGs. The new instrument and the IHR targeting amendments are important components of dealing with the system's inefficiencies and are part of the solutions that are required for effective international health emergency prevention, preparedness, and response. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the delegate of Albania, and before we give the floor to the delegate of Timor-Leste, I would like to invite the President Nakatani back to take the chair seat and to continue proceedings of the session. I thank you, everyone, for your great contributions. Thanks.
Thank you. May I invite Timor-Leste to take the floor, followed by Iraq. Timor-Leste, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Timor-Leste appreciates the leadership role of WHO Secretariat in fight against the COVID-19 pandemic globally and the country level as proof commitment for the pandemic preparedness and response for the future. The international health regulation is a powerful tool for the preventing, detecting, and containing the spread of the communicable disease across the borders. It plays a positive role in fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic tells us countries should help and share each other. If we don't, we want to fail ourselves. Timor-Leste recognizes the continued support from WHO and the international community together to fight the pandemic COVID-19. To strengthening country preparedness and response for the future, Timor-Leste continue recommended to WHO to assist member states to strengthening all aspects of the health system capacity, including community health system for health emergency prevention, preparedness, and response, as well as continue of essential health service for universal health coverage. Strengthening coordination at the global, regional, and country level, collaboration and cooperation among different sectors using one health approach. A resilient health system is at center of pandemic preparedness and response. Timor-Leste reiterating need to build up to enhance our health workforce, infrastructure, and ensure capacity of health system. This is particularly true for the small of the country like Timor-Leste. We recognize the central of leading role of WHO in global health, member states and international community should provide adequate and sustainable financing to ensure strengthening of public health emergency preparedness and response in the future. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Last speaker on the list is Iraq. Iraq, you have the floor. I'm afraid I failed to recognize 3 more speakers by following order: Iraq, followed by Nigeria, Dominican Republic, and Belize. So that is 4 remaining speakers. Iraq, are you ready to take the floor? Is Iraq present? No, it seems absent. In that case, may I invite Nigeria to take the floor, followed by Dominican Republic, and finally Belize. Nigeria? Yes, please.
Yes.
Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Nigeria commends the WHO for its leadership in coordinating the response to several public health challenges, especially the ongoing pandemic. We particularly appreciate the WHO's service to all member states, especially speaking as a country in the African region. To build back better from the pandemic while adopting an all-of-government and all-of-people approach, Nigeria is implementing its consolidation phase of the COVID response that rests on the following pillars: strengthening surveillance and testing, and directly linked to that is genomic surveillance. At the same time, we are developing and retaining such capacity, and the last pillar is related to vaccination. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the limitations of IHR 2005, and we know that the protections and privileges that were meant to be afforded member states under the umbrella of IHR were several times eroded by non-adherence to its extant provisions. It is important to ensure that the pattern of non-adherence to IHR provisions during the pandemic does not continue, because it contributed to exacerbation of detrimental health disparities. So Nigeria supports an approach to the review and amendments to the articles of IHR, one that is comprehensive, takes on board all the proposals by member states, and also ensures that we ensure social justice, equitable access to and sharing of public health goods, including technologies, knowledge, manufacturing capacities, as well as access to financial resources. In addition, Nigeria is also in support of the work that is going on developing a treaty for pandemic preparedness and response, and hopes that following the consultative process and the successful draft, it would indeed be signed off on by all member states. To conclude, Nigeria fully endorses the regional position earlier delivered by the honorable member from Botswana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am wondering whether the Dominican Republic is present. I don't see. So may I invite Belize to take the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Belize aligns itself with the statement made by our colleague from Costa Rica this morning as we join the 44 states who are co-sponsors of the Solidarity Call to Action of the CETA. The COVID-19 pandemic has challenged health systems all over the world, including Belize. As cases surged, we were forced to suspend primary care facilities and redistribute our resources. Additionally, there was interrupted continuity of care, especially for persons with non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and HIV. Belize recorded its first case of COVID-19 in March 2020. And to date, we have seen 4 large waves of this relentless virus. We are now entering our 5th wave. We have a total of 58,419 cases, and to date, 677 Belizeans have lost their lives due to this virus. We currently have 49.42% of our population fully vaccinated and 69% of our targeted population 12 and over fully vaccinated. Belize remains committed to the public health emergency response. In addition to having early testing in country, PPEs and supplies, vaccines through COVAX and donations, and key medications, the Ministry of Health and Wellness launched a robust educational campaign regarding COVID-19 transmissibility and the importance of vaccine uptake. Early in our response, government funding was mobilized to cross-train human resource in field epidemiology and surveillance, health regulations at borders, and on testing strategies. The PAHO Belize Country Office, through funding from the European Union's health sector, has supported the Ministry of Health and Wellness in the following 4 actions: transformation of the health system based on primary health care, strengthening public health capacities through essential public health functions, training to build capacity on integrated health service delivery networks, and studies on public health financing. There is still much more to be done to strengthen response, working closer with member states, especially in the region of the Americas, and improving timely access to vaccines and key medication. We welcome the continued assistance from PAHO WHO and other partners in technical areas, capacity building, as well as in areas of resources to adequately respond to public health emergencies. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I will call those who were absent. So that is your last chance to take the floor if you so wish. First, Bahrain, Sudan, Cuba, Iraq, Dominican Republic. Anyone who wishes to take the floor? I think they are absent. Therefore, we will move ahead. What we are going to do today is that, as I said earlier, I'd like to advance as much as possible. Already, all member states have spoken. And then we would like to hear views of observers, international organizations, and NGOs. And then I would like to invite 2 co-chairs to have comments and advice. And then I would invite our Secretariat to respond. And then I would like to consider paper, WHA, A75/17, including decision point. So that is what I would like to do. So may I invite observer, in accordance with the rule applicable to observers at the World Health Assembly, I have the pleasure to invite the floor to the representative of Gavi, if available. Gavi?
Thank you, Mr. President. We were about to speak on the A75/20. Is that in the next grouping?
Yes, that is next grouping.
Okay, so we will speak then.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. Then may I invite, in conformity with Rule 47 of the Rule of Procedures of the World Health Assembly concerning the representatives of the United Nations and other international organizations, I would like to give the floor to Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Are you ready to take the floor?
Yes. Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the Food and Agriculture Organization, underpinned by a vision of better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life, promotes the transformation to healthy, resilient, efficient, inclusive, and sustainable agri-food systems. FAO supports countries in developing or enhancing national One Health early warning and surveillance framework for collecting and integrating information on disease drivers from livestock, forestry, wildlife, and natural resource sectors to support prevention and preparedness to potential pandemics of animal origin. Considering that 60% of emerging diseases are of animal origin, without the One Health approach, there can be no pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. We are delighted to see the progressive integration of One Health approach in the discussion of the working group on strengthening WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies. The implementation of the One Health approach should be appropriately considered by the intergovernmental negotiation body as a guiding principle. Mr. Chair, the One Health approach has actually never been more needed to guide proper and balanced investment on health systems, including human, animal, and environment, for a healthier and safer world. The partners of the quadripartite, FAO, OIE, UNEP, and WHO, are committed to work together to address these risks and finalize the One Health joint plan of action that provides a strategic framework for action and proposes a set of activities to advance and sustainably scale up One Health implementation. Together with a joint vision to mainstream One Health and as a strong quadripartite, we are committed to a common vision of better health for human, animal, plant, and environment. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is International Atomic Energy Agency. Floor is yours. Yes, please. I recognize you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So since 2020, the IAEA has responded to requests for assistance from 129 countries and territories in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, and based upon its decades of experience using nuclear and related techniques for detection of animal and zoonotic diseases, the IAEA has provided support to 305 national laboratories or institutions in the form of RT-PCR machines, diagnostic kits, over 2,036 and related items. It's in the midst of the pandemic and spanning from the pandemic that the IAEA launched the Zoonotic Disease Integrated Action Zodiac Initiative in 2020. Zodiac aims at increasing zoonotic disease detection, diagnosis, and monitoring capacities in member states using nuclear and related techniques. Today, Zodiac is centered around a network of Zodiac national laboratories designated by their national authorities in 125 countries. Zodiac will contribute to the global efforts to strengthen preparedness for zoonotic disease outbreaks, and in that context, the IAEA and the FAO signed a revised arrangement in 2021, upgrading the partnership to support joint efforts to improve, monitor, and control transboundary animal zoonotic diseases and plant diseases. The IAEA and WHO have increased their regular dialogue on areas of potential concern and common interest to identify how Zodiac can strengthen the work of the WHO and ensure complementarity of efforts to maximize support to member states in the areas of animal sampling, training, information management, and response to zoonotic diseases. Joint meetings are currently ongoing to define the work plans and activities to be carried out over the next weeks and months. The IAEA has joined the UN Biorisk Working Group, co-chaired by WHO, and was recently invited to participate in the Global Strategic Preparedness Network. As already demonstrated—
Would you mind to conclude, please?
Yeah, we're concluding right now. As already demonstrated through decades of mutual cooperation with the WHO, the IAEA stands ready to continue contributing its expertise where relevant to strengthen preparedness and response in health emergencies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Organisation Mondiale de la Santé Animale. Floor is yours. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am speaking on behalf of the World Organization for Animal Health, the OIE. The OIE acknowledged the report by WHO Director General on achievements to date of the adopted resolution WHA 74.7. The tripartite organization FAO, OIE, and WHO have expanded their collaboration to include UNEP as an equal partner, and now we are formally a stronger quadripartite for One Health. We have to make these partnerships operational, sustainable, and streamlined on our systems, and that's why the One Health approach provides us the appropriate framework to do so and encourages the participation of all relevant sectors and disciplines in a comprehensive and coordinated manner. To advance the One Health approach at all levels, a One Health joint plan of action is developed by the quadripartite as the blueprint for actions in the future. Regarding the ongoing negotiations for a pandemic accord or a new international instrument, it is essential to ensure that the One Health is articulated as its fundamental principles and to give the due focus to prevention, to transform our relationship with the environment, to tackle the health threat at the interface. We need to move from response to prevention. Involvement to date by the OIE and other quadripartite partners in the intergovernmental negotiating body has been limited. The OIE can play a major role in developing the instrument, given its mandate as the global authority for setting international standards on animal health, including wildlife. The OIE advocates for the formation of collaborative governance arrangements that allow the quadripartite to contribute to the design of the essential elements of the new international instrument so that human, animal, and environmental health sector are jointly considered.
Would you mind
and
to
supported.
conclude, please?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I have received 2 pre-recorded tapes from 2 organizations. First, UNAIDS, followed by Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. So let us view video from UNAIDS.
Chair, UNAIDS commends the WHA and WHO under the leadership of the DG Dr. Tedros for the progress made to help the world better respond and prepare for pandemics. COVID-19 continues to undercut achievements made in response to HIV and TB. Simultaneously, health infrastructure, including systems built to end AIDS, are being successfully leveraged for the COVID response and should be foundational for future efforts on pandemic preparedness and response. Lessons learned from fighting AIDS, TB, and COVID are vital for informing strategies for tackling outbreaks to come. Principles and approaches learned from decades of responding to the AIDS epidemic can be useful going forward. UNAIDS therefore submit that the new pandemic preparedness and response instrument include the following 5 essential substantive elements: placing human rights at the core of pandemic responses, putting communities at the center in pandemic preparedness and response architecture at national, regional, and global level, ensuring access to health technology and medical countermeasures as public health goods to allow equitable access, building people-focused data system capable of highlighting inequalities, supporting health workforce, including community health workers at the front line of the pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next video comes from Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. Is video absent? In that case, when video is ready, I'll come back again. Video is ready. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the International Organization of Francophonie, an observer member of the WHO. Our organization welcomes the holding of this session of the WHA and would take this opportunity to applaud international efforts led by the coordinating effort of the WHO to respond to the pandemic. We note with interest the efforts that have been made to date as part of the working group on strengthening preparedness and response to international health emergencies. And we are convinced that the results which will emerge from this work will strengthen prevention of future pandemics. We welcome the high level of technological advancements and the know-how which the WHO has been continuing to apply in French-speaking countries. We also applaud the EB decision to renew the mandate of Dr. Ghebreyesus as the DG of the WHO, and we support him in his implementation of all of the work. We welcome the signing of a cooperation agreement and a memorandum with the WHO, and it's on this basis that the secretary of our organization has started a number of initiatives to give equitable access to vaccines. There have been visits to a number of countries to encourage national vaccination campaigns. The WHO Academy has also a certain leverage that it can exercise in this area and to influence health actors in French-speaking countries. What remains to be done is the following. We are in agreement of having a ministerial deliberation to discuss the difficulties that are linked with access to vaccines for vulnerable populations. This is part of our global vaccination goals. The International Francophonie Organization would lastly underscore its availability to work with the WHO on the basis of commitments that have been made as part of our cooperation agreement in order to strengthen multilingualism. And I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. We have received 14 requests from non-state actors in official relation with WHO. But I understand out of 14, 9 representatives are present tonight. So may I invite 9 speakers? And then to make sure that I'm not missing anyone, I will call the remaining 5 agencies. First, may I invite Royal Commonwealth Society for the Blind, Sight Savers. If you're present, please start your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Persons with disabilities are among the most at risk in any emergency. There is an urgent need to invest in disability-inclusive health emergency preparedness, response and recovery. With the support of the International Disability and Development Consortium, Sight Savers calls for ensuring health equity by removing any barriers and discrimination and ensuring access to life-saving interventions, vaccinations and care for persons with disabilities in line with Articles 11 and 25 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Strengthening disability inclusion across health systems and the continuum of care, including disability disaggregation of data. Ensuring access to inclusive health information, risk communication and participatory community mobilization measures, and ensuring that essential services, including rehabilitation, psychosocial support and interpreting services, are adapted and continue to operate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is the Global Health Council. You have the floor. While you are preparing to start your contribution, I will read out who will come next so that I think smooth, so change of seat can be assured. Global Health Council, followed by Medicus Mundi International, followed by Save the Children Fund. Then, let us start from Global Health Council. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. WHO's integral role throughout the pandemic has proven no alternative organization exists that is as inclusive, transparent, and willing to act equitably. This makes strengthening WHO all the more important. We applaud the work of the WGPR to strengthen WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies, as well as the extension of the working group to consider improvements to the international health regulations. While preparedness and response are of utmost importance, WHO and member states must also incorporate a One Health approach when addressing public health emergencies, with particular attention to spillover events. Ensuring an equitable, effective, and coordinated response to any future health emergency requires a whole-of-government, whole-of-society approach. We encourage continued non-state actor engagement in WHO strengthening discussions in line with WGPR processes. NSAs are critical actors in these policy deliberations, and their meaningful engagement must be prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Medical Mundi International Network Health for All, followed by the Save the Children Fund, then United States Pharmacopeia Convention. Medical Mundi International, floor is yours.
Thank you. Amending the IHR requires inputs from member states' diverse experts. We are concerned that the U.S. proposal on the IHR amendments undermine the deliberations of WGPR and that the amendments may undermine countries' sovereignty. The proposal ignores human resources, infrastructure, and coordination challenges in many countries. Amendment must take note of and seek to respond to such challenges. The narrow timeframes demanded will unlikely be met. The draft resolution on certain IHR amendment proposals show exercise of power rather than adequate reflection of public health concern. This compromises multilateral spirit and coordination. Communities, especially frontline workers, should be consulted in the IHR amendments and implementation processes. Community and engagement should be included as a core capacity in health emergency preparedness and response in the IHR. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is the Save the Children Fund, followed by United States Pharmacopeia Convention, and then Women in Global Health. The Save the Children Fund, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The COVID-19 pandemic has strained health systems and highlighted the need to invest so we can respond to health emergencies and deliver essential services for all. We can achieve our goals on UHC and health security through strong primary healthcare systems working across sectors and with communities. To that effect, we call on WHO and member states to integrate approaches to health security and UHC so that systems contribute to the prevention of infectious diseases while maintaining services during emergencies. Build on strong primary healthcare system, which is the cornerstone of health systems resilience. Build on existing systems and organizations working for health emergency preparedness and response, and ensure that communities and civil society can meaningfully participate in global health processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is United States Pharmacopeia Convention, followed by Women in Global Health, and then Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiatives. United States Pharmacopeia Convention, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States Pharmacopeia Convention is a nonprofit organization that sets quality standards for medicines, food ingredients, and dietary supplements. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated vulnerabilities in the global medicine supply chain, leading to shortages, medicine quality issues, and price volatility. It is imperative to use this time to prepare for the next pandemic and the future of global health security. USP is committed to working with WHO and global stakeholders to bolster quality assurance through regulatory and laboratory workforce training and enhancing broader adoption of public quality standards, strengthen regulatory systems by building capabilities to identify upstream risks in the supply chain, expand local production capabilities, including reducing barriers to advanced manufacturing technologies and facilitating tech transfer, preserve the supply of critical medicines, including antimicrobials, and investing in the development of novel products, and finally, to enhance global cooperation to improve global supply chain resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Women in Global Health, followed by Drugs for Neglected Disease Initiatives, and then Médecins Sans Frontières International. Women in Global Health, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Ministers, esteemed delegates, my name is Rebecca Reister from Women in Global Health, Chile. Women are 70% of the health workforce globally and 90% of frontline workers, but only 25% of senior health leaders. This results in decisions that marginalize the needs and expertise of half of the world's population and undermine health systems. Therefore, we present the following 2 points to ensure we build back better and equal from the current pandemic and adequately prevent and prepare for the next one. Firstly, decision-making bodies must have 50% women members, including in leadership, prioritizing women from the Global South. Decision-making bodies must apply gender risk assessment, generate, analyze, and use sex disaggregated data. Secondly, governments must ensure availability of personal protective equipment in all shapes and sizes. Governments must provide safe and decent work, free from violence and harassment, and equitable pay. Governments must ensure no reduction or diversion of resources from health to other sectors and prevent discontinuation of essential health services. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiatives, followed by Médecins Sans Frontières International, and then Stitching Health Action International. Drug for Neglected Diseases Initiatives. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Before I begin, I've been asked by the Secretariat to clarify if the Chair wishes to have comments from non-state actors on A75/Conf9 on clinical trials in addition to the current grouping, or if there will be additional opportunities to provide comments on that later.
In that case, I would invite you to speak at a later stage.
I can do it now. That's fine, and I'll park the clinical trials. Thank you. Okay. DNDi welcomes the prioritization of equity as a strategic pillar within the WGPR. We urge member states to support strengthening national, regional, and global R&D coordination as a substantive element of any pandemic instrument. Globally agreed norms, including transparency and open sharing of knowledge and technology. Governance structures that ensure public leadership and parity between Global South and North. Increased investments in regional surveillance, R&D, manufacturing, and regulatory capacity, and sustainable and predictable financing of end-to-end R&D. For clinical trials, we want clinical trials that are well-designed, well-powered, comparable to generate actionable evidence, investment in clinical trial platform infrastructure and human resources in low and middle-income countries, and to ensure transparent, publicly available information, including protocols, trial data, and costs, and safeguard access to originator drugs for research. Inclusion of historically excluded populations, and finally, benefit sharing principles to ensure sufficient access to end products for trial participants and broader communities. Thank you.
Thank you, DNDi, for educating me to secure 2 speaking slots. Thank you very much. May I invite Médecins Sans Frontières and finally, Switching Health Action International. Médecins Sans Frontières International, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Médecins Sans Frontières intends to make the statement regarding Conf paper number 9. Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead.
Médecins Sans Frontières statement is under Conf paper number 9, so we'll make a statement in another opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your help. Stitching Health Action International, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We welcome the intentions expressed by the Secretariat and specific steps taken by Member States to support WHO's response to pandemics and other health emergencies. Regarding proposed amendments to IHR, we encourage consistency with the work of the WGPR and the INB on drafting an international instrument to prepare for the next pandemic. WHO action on clinical trials should be guided by the principle of transparency of all results. Only accessible, reliable, and valid research can bring about lasting solutions. Lastly, we call the attention of delegates to ongoing negotiations in other international bodies that may have serious consequences, not only for the fight against COVID-19, but perhaps more so for future health emergencies as well as existing diseases. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I heard that Woman Deliver would like to take the floor. So may I invite Woman Deliver to take the floor. Microphone, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have seen how the COVID-19 pandemic had a detrimental impact on sexual and reproductive health and rights, and this gendered impact of emergencies must be addressed to further gender equality and girls' and women's health. This begins by ensuring SRHR is an integral component of universal health coverage and resilient health systems, with adequate and protected budgetary allocations, especially in the face of climate change. UHC should include the full range of SRH services, including adolescent and youth-friendly services, access to modern contraception, self-care, programs to prevent GBV and harmful practices, and safe abortion. Uninterrupted access to quality SRH services, including survivor-centered gender-based violence, must be ensured in emergencies, especially for those facing multiple barriers and discrimination. Finally, civil society, girls and women, and all their intersecting identities must be engaged meaningfully in all stages of preparedness and response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have recognized that 5 other non-state actors has expressed interest to speak, but it seems not pleasant, but make sure that they are not pleasant. I will lead out the names which were registered. The World Medical Association, Medicine Patent Pool Foundation, International Society of Pediatric Oncology, International Alliance of Patients Organizations, International Federation of Medical Students Associations. Is anyone present? Yes, I recognize 2 hands, 1 hand.
3 hands.
3 hands. 4 hands.
No, 3.
3 hands. 3 hands. Yes. Don't raise both hands. So 3 hands. Okay. So the World Medical Association. No? Medicine Patent Pool Foundation. Yes, you have the floor. Medicine Patent Pool Foundation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Medicines Patent Pool is pleased that equity is a key part of the considerations of strengthening WHO's preparedness and response to health emergencies. Public health-driven, voluntary, non-exclusive, and transparent licensing of intellectual property and technology transfer can be a critical way to achieve equity. This approach is being applied to patented COVID-19 therapeutics, which have been licensed to multiple generic manufacturers to supply around 100 LMICs. Similarly, the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub that currently includes 14 spokes in LMICs aims to develop sustainable manufacturing capacity to ensure equitable access. MPP recommends the strengthening of this mechanism for future pandemics and call for the inclusion of relevant access conditions in public and philanthropic funding of research and development to facilitate voluntary licensing and technology transfer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is a representative of International Society of Pediatric Oncology available? Yes, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can also confirm that a colleague from the World Medical Association is also sat next to me but had a slight microphone malfunction. Thank you. Honourable Chair, distinguished delegates, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the International Society of Paediatric Oncology, SIOP. WHO's Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer is striving for 60% survival by 2030. Cancer affects 1 in 430 children under the age of 15 years, and over 80% survive in high-income countries. Successful and cost-effective treatments exist even in low and middle-income countries. However, COVID-19 disrupted childhood cancer services disproportionately in low and middle-income countries, affecting diagnosis, treatment, and the cancer workforce. The global community has, in response, developed mitigation strategies to address these impacts, and I wish to assure that SIOP are available to ensure that the needs of children and youth with cancer and the specialised staff who care for them are included in emergency preparedness and response planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is the World Medical Association.
Honourable Chair, distinguished delegates, I speak on behalf of World Medical Association. The current pandemic demonstrates the acute inequities in access to life-saving tools and treatments. The international health regulation alone cannot ensure effective, equitable global response and protect enough the health workforce. The WMA, representing 9 million physicians globally, support the development of a new international instrument on pandemic preparedness based on the principles of equity and human rights. A crucial part of this instrument must be to invest and strengthen the health workforce. The instrument should act as a global public good. It needs to be appropriately resourced and sustainably financed to meet its goals. The instrument-making process should be participatory and transparent to ensure that all relevant stakeholders are adequately consulted and heard, while also striving to shield the process from undue influence from commercial interests. Finally, the WMA strongly condemns the increasing incidence of violence against health workforce and health facilities worldwide and calls for their urgent protection. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I understand that the International Alliance of Patients Organizations and the International Federation of Medical Students Associations are absent. Okay, this concludes our invitation to non-state actors in official relation with WHO. In addition, we have received 9 pre-recorded statements, but these will be presented at appropriate timing. By this, I would like to invite co-chairs if you have any advice, guidance, or comments of what we have discussed today. So, may I invite, who will go first? Yes, Colin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess just to say to colleagues, first again, a big thank you. And I guess it wouldn't be a proper WGPR discussion if, in fact, we weren't meeting and talking at the end of a very long day, late into the evening. This has been our lives together for many months now. But what I heard, and I want to express again my gratitude and all of our gratitude, is a sense of commitment, a sense of consensus on the work of our working group, and strongly a consensus on the way forward to keep working to improve the system. A clear commitment, despite this incredibly challenging environment, especially, to be honest, an incredibly challenging environment for multilateralism and for shared solutions and collective action. We are all committed collectively to continue to do that and continue to work together to find consensus, including on the way forward following from the WGPR. I would just say for a healthier, safer, and more equitable world, very critically. So I'll stop there, Chair and Ambassador.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo my co-chair in expressing my sincere thanks for all member states who have delivered their statement, including also some of the non-state actors who deliver statement relevant to the work of WGPR. I just want to say that throughout the day, I listened very carefully all the statement, and I'm happy to hear some support, but also some concern, some hope, and some aspiration coming from the floor. And it was a humbling experience because this is a very difficult task that we put on ourselves, and I think we come to the time when we almost there. It was, again, not an easy task, and personally, I'm coming from a family with a child with 4 siblings and many dozen cousins. So whenever it's becoming very difficult, I remember what my parents said, that many hands make work light. So when every member state working together over a very difficult task, it doesn't seem very difficult. Even when we have time when it's very difficult to get a consensus, I always believe there is a solution. So I just want to say that I'm all and aspired by member state commitment on working together. I believe each one of us, being in the room, staying until late, want to contribute, no matter how small it is, to the betterment of our world and to make our world better prepared for the next pandemic. So I just want to say that the report in front of you represents this commitment. And if it is adopted, it will pave way for more work. I know that member states are not afraid for more work, so more work to bring this commitment to different processes under the WHO system and maybe beyond WHO system if member state decided to do so. So it is in your hands. So as a co-chair, will be very happy to pass the baton to other processes as well. So again, thank you to all member state, all non-state actors, and of course the Secretariat who have been very supportive in our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution and hard work for many, many months and many, many nights. Thank you very much. And then may I invite Dr. Major, ADG, to share your views, comments, advice. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Co-Chair, for giving me the opportunity. And on behalf of the Secretariat, I would like to start by thanking all member states for their leadership and guidance during the ongoing discussion on strengthening WHO preparedness for and response to health emergencies. Appreciation is also due to observer, non-state actors, civil society organizations, and other UN agencies and partners for their engagement and involvement. I would like also to recognize and appreciate the members of the WGPR Bureau under the leadership of the co-chairs Ambassador Grata and Mr. Collin for their hard work and leadership. As the WGPR co-chair said just now, this has not been an easy process, but your focus, co-chairs and Bureau members, on the principle of inclusivity and consensus that guided the work of the WGPR over the past year has surely facilitated reaching an important outcome, and thank you very much for that. The WHO Secretariat, under the leadership of the Director General, remains committed to continue providing all the support necessary through the process moving forward as decided by the Member State. Mr. Chair, honorable delegates, Member States have been organized in their statement the importance of the International Health Regulation 2005 as the existing legally binding instrument for national preparedness and for preventing international spread of disease, and the need to further strengthen its implementation and compliance, including through potential targeted amendments, which are expected to address specific and clearly identified issues based on the lesson learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Secretariat will continue to support Member States to strengthen the implementation and compliance with the IHR 2005. The Secretariat is also prepared to support the Member State-led process for strengthening the international health regulation, including convening the IHR Review Committee to provide technical advice on the proposed amendment in the context of Member State-led process. Mr. Chair, many member state and non-state actors in their intervention highlight the importance of a new international instrument taking the lesson learned from the ongoing pandemic. The INB is taking that work forward through you, our member states. Finally, Mr. Chair, many member states in their intervention made statements on other subjects under Agenda Item 16.4, such as the Global Architecture for Health Emergency Preparedness and Response, the HPR, Urban Preparedness, and others. The Secretariat will address these other matters in due course when these items are open for discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ADG. During this discussion, the number of speakers I counted is exceeding 65. So attention or interest of member states' commitment is very strong. And I have heard any critical points or critical observation for document A75/17. So I would like to move to consider the report A75/17 contained in the documents, the report, and that will include a decision. So I formally invite the committee to note the report contained in document A75/17 and to approve the draft decision. The committee is in agreement. I see no objection. Therefore, report is noted and the decision is approved. Thank you very much. I will gavel twice. However, there is a few more work remains. For example, Conference Paper 7, some member states express concern and observations. I'm wondering whether informal conversation among member states will facilitate understanding each other. So I would like to propose to keep some time, and we will come back later. Also, we are aware about more resolutions, relating resolutions are on the table. We will take up all this in due course at a later stage. So I think we will suspend this sub-item now. And if I declare that we are going to discuss agenda item 14.1, I will be hated. I will not do so. I will not do so. I will not do so. Delegates, we have now come to the end of our meeting today. Tomorrow morning, we will begin the 5th meeting of Committee A at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Please refer to the Daily Journal for full details. I would like to remind delegates to please take all your belongings together before leaving the room. Finally, I would like to inform the delegates that the Strategic Roundtable Radical Reorientation of Health Systems towards Primary Health Care as the foundation of universal health coverage, the best and only choice to achieve universal health coverage, will take place tomorrow at 1 p.m. in room 26. Then I can declare meeting is now closed. Good night and bon appetit. Thank you. Thank you very much.